Welcome to the GCI Conference Center. Thank you. Please stand by. You are being placed into conference in listen-only mode. There are 20 participants in the conference.
Okay, good morning, everybody. This is the Marijuana Control Board. We're reconvening on Thursday, November 14th, 9 a.m. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Jaime?
Here.
Mr. Schulte?
Here.
Mr. Springer?
Here.
And there are a couple of names that I'm not as familiar with, but we also, from staff, have Jonathan Church, Michael Martin, and I'll let the remaining members introduce themselves.
And I'm James Holscher, Acting Director for Alcohol and Marijuana Control.
And Wilkerson, Assistant Attorney General.
And he's just filling in for Joan because she's in court again. Okay, before we start, yesterday afternoon, Chairman Klein of the ABC Board and myself sent memoranda to the governor notifying him of the votes of our respective boards, and we both recommended Chief Holscher as acting director, and my understanding is that has been approved by the governor, so he's interim director until a new director is appointed, and it's anybody's guess whether it's going to be sooner or later. I wouldn't be surprised if it was sooner. At this time, I would like to give the floor to James to make a couple of comments, and then Michael has a couple of comments speaking for the staff as well.
Hi, good morning. I think many of you are familiar with me. I've worked with probably all of you at one point or another. And I think what's important, I think, for myself and for maybe everybody here is we take kind of a reset from yesterday. Yesterday was pretty rough. It was rough for the staff. It was rough for licensees. I think that is important to set the tone different from what was yesterday. And I think moving forward, it's important that we have some collaborative effort to communicate things maybe in more accurate ways. That includes us as well as you. There's expectations of us as regulators to do our jobs and to do things properly in a timely manner. There's also expectations of licensees that are in a highly regulated market, whether it be alcohol or marijuana. And those expectations that you follow the rules and that you set a good example to keep Alaskans safe are paramount. I didn't have anything planned or anything written other than what I can say is we need to I find a way to kind of move past this, move forward, and I would appreciate civility. And moving forward, I would like the records and licensing supervisor to clarify a few things that maybe have misstated on the record yesterday. And I think it's important for you as licensees and the public to know some of the stats that were quoted yesterday, and I think it's important to get those clarified.
Yeah, Michael?
Thank you, Chair Springer. I don't have the specific numbers at my fingertips at this time, so I will be providing some approximate information, but I think it will illustrate the point that I'm attempting to make. While I have my own feelings regarding what happened at the end of the day yesterday, I don't have the eloquence or ability to address anything additional to what has been said by both the Director and Chair at this time. I would like to address some comments made in public testimony and by the board regarding that public testimony. There were comments made regarding wait times and staff response from licensing. Currently, the wait times are 1 to 3 weeks, depending on volume of applications. I'd like to point out that at about a year to a year and a half ago, the wait times were measured not in weeks, but in months. I just want to let a second for that to sit in. Months. Staff has been working so hard, so diligently to get these applications. I just want to make it clear how hard they work every day. The wait times for this application agenda were referenced. There were approximately 30 applications or application corrections received within 1 to 2 weeks of that deadline. It is impossible for 2 staff members to process everything received. And so I just wanted to make that very clear that staff does a spectacular job and they do the best with the resources that they're given. Furthermore, board comments were made that have been included in the media coverage about the staff response and wait times. While staff appreciates feedback, we prefer constructive feedback. So if there are things you would like us to do differently or better, we need to hear those, not just what's wrong with what we're doing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Micah. And, yeah, weeks from months. We remember 3 years ago, 4 years ago, every single meeting, we had 10 people coming up saying, why is it taking so long? You know, and the reason that that they're up to, you know, a couple of weeks on an application is because they've worked damn hard to do that. And they're doing it for the people that are applying for the licenses. So, thanks, Michael. Thank you, James. Okay, next item on the agenda is tab number 16. We're on applications from previous meetings, and let the folks on the phone know.
Sorry, we had a time certain, I believe.
Oh, yeah, that's
the
right.
beginning of the agenda considered the
yes,
matter.
Yep. Okay, is Steve here? Steve Krupe? Oh, okay, all right. Well, then come on down. We are going to be doing a review of 3AC 306 Article 6, marijuana testing facilities. Steve Krupe from DEC, and you can say the name of the laboratory, is here. DEC is our contractor. We now have a signed memorandum of agreement with the Department of Environmental Conservation to supervise the testing process. Is anybody here from the pesticide office?
It doesn't appear so,
Okay,
Chairman.
That's right. We will probably just talk about pesticides with you just a little bit when we get towards the end. But Steve, go ahead, introduce yourself. Tell us what you are doing for the board and for the people of the state of Alaska under this MOA, and we'll go through Chapter 6 because it is really important in light of some of the issues that we've had. James, you're going to preface this. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I would just ask that, I know I've spoken to Mr. Krupe in the past about aflatoxins, and since that was brought up yesterday, if you have just a brief moment to maybe touch on a little bit of that at the end. If anything, just a statement that we have looked into that. It was brought up yesterday, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to catch you off guard, but I want the general licensees and the public to know this is a concern that we did discuss. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Steve Krupe. I'm the quality manager at the Environmental Health Lab here in Anchorage. And to date, we have been working for AMCO, for the board, on following up on audit reports that A12A, the prior contractor for the board, had generated as a result of visits to a couple labs. We have looked at and worked with 2 labs right now in terms of addressing the findings from the report. The findings related to deficiencies relative to regulation and also deficiencies relative to the ISO 17025 standard. This last summer, A12A had come back to review a couple of the labs relative to the draft compliance document, just to get an idea of where laboratories were at relative to that document. So, like I said, we've worked with 2 labs to address the findings. And I'm not sure, so in terms of the memorandum of understanding going forward, our involvement, just to give you a brief, is going to be initially when a lab applies for a license, that we'll be reviewing the application, reviewing their SOPs and reviewing their method validation that they work towards in terms of developing their methods, and work with the labs to shore up any gaps that we see. When we're looking at SOPs, we're looking to make sure that they completely describe what they're doing and that they cover basic elements of quality control. These are common deficiencies that we've seen with the labs we worked with so far, in that they don't thoroughly describe everything that's going on, and that some of the basic elements of quality control are missing. The accuracy has been a big omission from SOPs and from processes. After the review of the application, we will give a report to AMCO that says, okay, we approve of what they've submitted with the application, and then we'll wait for direction from AMCO to actually do an on-site audit. The on-site audit will essentially verify that they are doing what their SOPs say they're doing, but we'll look at other things as well that won't bear themselves out in SOPs. For example, technique. There's, especially with these type of methods, technique is very important, and it's not something that you're going to be able to glean out of the SOPs. Kind of the same process as with the application review, where any gaps, any issues will be addressed during that audit, a report generated and provided to AMCO. And once we reach resolution on any of those findings, then we'll say, yeah, these folks are ready to go. From that point, it'll be duties assigned. If there's any issues that come up, any concerns that come up, I believe the MOU also indicates that there'll be annual audits that we will coordinate with AMCO in terms of scheduling those audits. Are there any questions on that, on our involvement to date or our involvement in the future?
Any board members with questions? Go ahead.
A couple questions. So when you approve the application and send it back to AMCO, was the plan to let the lab open and you go back in the first 30 days, or once it's approved, you let AMCO know and the lab is expected to go out and get samples, I say not valid samples, for you guys to come and observe?
My understanding is that once we approve the application, that they would not be allowed to operate just yet, but that would trigger approval of the application and then the on-site audit. Now, between approval of the application and doing the on-site audit, not operating, but there is benefit to, and I think this was done in the past with the lab in Juneau in terms of I'm not sure what it was called, a conditional use.
Yeah, let me just clarify something real quick. They are our technical advisor. They aren't the licensing authority. Anybody on this board that understands every word of Section 6, raise your hand. I didn't think so. Okay? So, anybody on this board who thinks they can read a laboratory's SOP and know whether they're doing things right or wrong, raise their hands. I didn't think so. So that's why we have invited the expertise of Department of Environmental Conservation. They'll come in and they'll say, yeah, this looks good to us, and then the board takes a licensing action. There'll be, some operational testing, I guess, that goes on, and auditing, but they will not be open for business until they get their license from the board.
Hence the question, this is a process question, if they're not licensed to open, they're not accredited in metric, they can't receive samples for the testing. So I would like to understand, once they get approval, if the board approves, then they still can't open until they're properly licensed and are accredited in metric. So are we expecting this lab to go purchase marijuana from a store to prove these processes? Or are we going to give them some type of approval and metric to, I guess, receive samples from someone? It's really a process question, and I need to understand how those labs will be allowed to operate. I mean, I'm sure someone had an idea.
Sure. Been some discussion on that?
We've had this discussion not only with testing, but with product manufacturers or concentrate manufacturers. When they want to verify or test their equipment, when it's a concentrate and it's the manufacturers, it's easy for us to say that they can use some existing plant material like basil or something to extract oil to see if it's working properly. But when it's a testing facility that's required to test for THC and the such, I think that there might be some legal ways which we've explored to include getting samples sent to them in small amounts that they test for with the proficiency testing. But outside of that, I do think there needs to be something where they are allowed by the board, when they are approved pending inspection, just like we allow for plants to be in a cultivation facility, they should be allowed a small amount of marijuana products, everything that we're expecting them to test so they can function and show that they're able to operate that equipment in front of the state. I think there should be limitations, but I also do think it is impractical for us to expect them to operate and test without allowing them to have the product to test.
Then I would just ask Mr. Krupe if, he would give that some thought, and maybe let James know, so we'll know what we're dealing with and can handle that in the future. I don't know how the board would authorize, if Mr. Krupe thinks they need to do 10 tests of flour, 10 tests of concentrates, then we can figure out the amount. But it would be nice to not get caught up at the last minute and having marijuana traveling around, not sure if it's manifested properly and being tracked.
Well, the other thing to keep in mind, too, is that laboratories actually anybody with the equipment can test privately owned marijuana. And when a laboratory goes and tests marijuana that Mark brings in from his home grow, it's not in metric, and they're not testing under the color of their license. So there's really nothing until they get a license. There's no impediment to them going to a couple of stores and purchasing some bud and some flour and some trim and some concentrates and running the tests. And, I don't think that there's any issue that the board has to deal with to permit those proficiency tests to take place.
It is actually something I've given thought to. Between the application approval and the license approval, there is value to having a limited amount of product on hand. It is, in terms of initially getting your procedures going, a person can use like oregano or some other plant material just to test the process, do your accuracy assessments and precision assessments, and just generally get an idea where you're at. But once the application is approved, I do see value in a laboratory having product on hand, because when you're with plant material, things like oregano will adequately tell you, is your process efficient, is it reproducible? But when it comes to other things involved in the industry, like edibles and concentrates, that's a whole different beast, and there's a lot of variables involved that will test the rigor of the method. And you can't get that with just having plant material on hand. So there is definitely value between that application approval and the license approval to having a limited amount of product in hand to do what we call method validation.
I understand what the chairman was saying about personal use and people being able to bring their own marijuana or buy marijuana and bring it to the testing facility. I only have the fear that that might muddy the water of personal use, and the cumulative amount might surpass an ounce. So I think it's better to be safe than sorry and allow a mechanism for licensees or a testing facility to be able to have this marijuana or marijuana products, which is not personal use marijuana, that they are testing for their purposes. But there is a way, I guess there is a mechanism, as long as they're careful as to consider that personal use and not have it exceed an ounce.
And I think there's also an opportunity for a very brief regulations project that would permit a testing laboratory with a completed application to obtain and maintain marijuana products up to a certain limit that I think should be pretty easy to determine for test approval purposes, and that we can't let them into metric until they get licensed, but we can certainly make sure they've got a good Excel spreadsheet and facilitate the testing process, and that when upon receipt of their license, all of that, if it hasn't been tested already, it'll just have to be destroyed. And I think that's like a sentence and a half. So, Mr. Schulte, you were to be recognized.
Yeah, just thanks. Just a couple of thoughts with regard to that process. Perhaps this would be an opportunity to resurrect the testing advisory committee and have them address this and come up with some sort of a protocol that will identify clearly in writing, where those test samples would come from, how they would be handled, and what the expectation would be. One potential pitfall I envision with going to a retail store, buying a product, and then taking that to a new testing facility is that you're taking a product that's already been tested by one lab and running it through a completely different lab, and I just fear a feedback loop there where, if you get invalid results, it's not going to be apparent which lab was at fault. I realize that's probably far-fetched, but I would usually, I think it would be best to just keep that dynamic out of it. But again, I think that this would be a great first project for the resurrected testing advisory committee to visit, because then I think, Mr. Krupe, the current testing labs, and other knowledgeable parties can get together and have an intelligent discussion that perhaps some of us on the board aren't really equipped to have. So that's my first. Another question from Mr. Krupe. My understanding is that at this point we have 2 functioning labs in the state.
Actually, I believe it's 3.
We got Fairbanks Analytical, CanTest, and
then Peak in Ketchikan.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, to your knowledge, are all 3 up and running, able to conduct the full suite of tests that we require?
They do have a full suite of tests. We have not looked at Peak's audit report and SOPs yet and evaluated them. We're in the middle of evaluating CanTest and working with them to shore up some of the aspects of their testing. Fairbanks Analytical, we're done with the review.
Okay.
And they're good to go.
Okay, great. One more question, if I may. So I'm looking in our regs at Section 6. One of the, and it articulates kinds of tests that a lab is expected to perform, and included in there is testing for pesticides. Obviously, that's become an issue recently. My understanding, flawed though it probably is that test equipment or perhaps the processes are beyond the scope of the labs currently in Alaska, and that's why we're sending test samples outside the state to test for pesticides. Is that correct? Yeah,
currently the 3 labs do not have equipment to do the pesticide testing. It is more expensive testing. It's a more involved extraction process, and different states have different lists of pesticides to test for, and without getting too chemistry, the chemistries of the pesticides are such that it's very difficult to get them all done in one method because they have different, try not to get too technical, but it's just difficult to get them all done at once, so it takes a lot of method validation time. So there's more so than the testing that's being done right now, there's a huge upfront investment in equipment, materials to do the sample preparation, but also the method validation. It takes a lot of time and a lot of work. And I can certainly understand, our labs are pretty young in the business, and I can understand hesitancy to jump right into it. Anybody that gets into them, sure, I'll fully support them and laud the effort, but it is a lot of effort to get up and going.
It sounds like the expense in equipment and the expertise required might not be developed in a market as small as Alaska. Is that a fair assessment?
It is a labor pool issue, yeah. We're a small state, small population. There are people in the state at a couple of commercial labs in the state that do have the expertise to do the work. So there is talent in the state, but there's not a lot of it. So it may require, a lab in Alaska, it may require them to search outside.
I was thinking more of, a lab, might get a pesticide product to test for pesticides once a week or once a month, whereas a larger lab and a larger, population base could get those samples, they could get 3 a day, and so their proficiency would be higher, I'm guessing. But anyway, I just wanted to understand really what our capability was to test for pesticides. It sounds like the out-of-state option really is our best option right now.
For the immediate future, yes.
Okay, great, thanks.
Can I ask one
Go
question?
ahead, sure.
So, we recently heard that there were some samples pulled to go test for pesticides. Is 1 pound a normal sample size?
That's a lot. Typically, it kind of depends on the actual method validation that was done by a lab. But typically, they're going to use something in the order of 30 to 60 grams, which is significantly smaller than a pound.
I do believe that when Karn spoke at the last meeting, she did say a pound was standard, and I don't mean to go against what you've said, but she may be available on the phone, and if you guys want to speak to the pesticides, we can maybe bring that up at the other meeting if you'd like.
Yeah, she did say that those samples, those 3 samples of a pound each were taken by DEC, by the pesticide program, not by AMCO. And she said, and she's the head of the pesticide program, she said that the standard sample is a pound of what it is you're testing. So if you're testing wheat, you'd send in a pound of wheat. And if you're testing, tobacco, you'd send a pound of tobacco. And so it was a pound of what you have, I think it was a pound of flour and a pound of trim and
Pound of waste.
pound of waste. Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Well, and the reason I'm asking is I'm thinking out loud. We have a lot of limited cultivators in this state, and their harvests aren't that big anyway. So if we could ask her to maybe clarify, and, let's say that when we get to pesticide testing, if they do a harvest, do they have to have samples from the flower, the trim, or can they take the fan leaves and the stems, things like that? I mean, if we had to pull a pound from every limited cultivator for every harvest, it would even be tougher for those guys to survive.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm not gonna try to disagree with what she said. Expertise on pesticides, and that may have been the sample size requested by the Washington laboratory.
It's certainly possible. And if I could clarify my comment, in terms of doing an individual sample extraction and prep, it takes 30 to 60 grams. But to ensure that you have a representative sample, yeah, you might want to take a bigger quantity. And especially with plant material, you want to realize that there's a lot of water involved. And so when you're weighing out, you want 30 to 60 grams of dry mass. So there's the water aspect, there's getting a representative sample, but then there's also the quality control aspect. So one of the common quality control aspect with testing is to do a sample duplicate. So you maybe have your pound of material, you've homogenized it, you've dried it, and you take, for argument's sake, a 30-gram portion out to do your sample testing, and that's going to give you your result. But then you're going to take a second aliquot out, and you're going to do a duplicate of that sample just to check your precision, your ability to reproduce the result. And typically with pesticides, you might also do a matrix spike. And what a matrix spike is you're adding a known amount of pesticide to the plant material, and you're determining your ability to extract it from the plant material. And that's a very valuable quality control measure there. Some labs may do what's called a matrix spike duplicate, which is doing that addition of pesticides twice to check the reproducibility of obtaining those target analytes, because of course, hopefully anyway, your plant sample is not going to have all the pesticides in there. And so the only way you can evaluate if you can get all the pesticides from the matrix is by adding them all in. That checks your accuracy. To do that a second time checks your ability to reproduce that result. So now you've got 4 30-gram portions. So yeah, if you collect a pound, I can see doing that. I can also understand your concern in terms of limited grow. That's quite a lot to ask, but can lower that volume, but realize you might be making some sacrifices.
I'm sorry.
I was just going to apologize for Dan.
Okay, I'll take the hit from here. Since we're talking about pesticides, I guess the takeaway for cultivators is don't use pesticides that are going to be problematic. So my question for anybody here is, I think this was answered previously at a much smaller. Is there a list of pesticides that are acceptable for use in our industry and absolutely not acceptable, and where is that located? Well, I understand that, but where is it located? I'm putting this out there for people who are listening or listening to these proceedings. If you got a limited cultivator somewhere in Alaska, he or she is wondering, is this legit what I'm doing? Where do they go to find that information?
I don't know if there's an approved list for marijuana in the state.
Yeah, there is.
Is there?
Okay, so this is why I'm bringing up the question. Mr. Holsham?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, through the chair, Bruce, Mr. Schulte, they're on DEC's website under the pesticide control program. I quickly Googled DEC Alaska pesticide, and the first hit was that website. So if you go onto that website and you go into their pesticide use programs, I can send an advisory to the licensees about where exactly that list is and attach the current list. But it's going to be incumbent on the licensees to check that, because my understanding is that list can change as people submit things that might be natural or organic, and they can get it brought to them for approval to be put on that list. And there is a list. I'm sorry, I'm sitting here trying to multitask and realizing I'm not that great at it with typing on the computer. Yes, but there is a location.
There's one application that we're going to review sometime today, and what that application did was attach the entire DEC list to their application and said, we're going to use those pesticides. And I think the staff question to the board is that sufficient? Or should they say they're going to use this one, and this one, instead of the 5 or 7 pages that they attached to their application? So we actually have that list in one of our applications that we're going to review this afternoon.
One more thought, and I'll try and wrap it up. Perhaps, just to keep it simple, would it be appropriate to just link from DEC's website to someplace on AMCO's website so that a marijuana licensee who's accustomed to going to AMCO for answers simply go to AMCO's website, click on a link that says approved for use pesticides on cannabis, and get redirected to the DEC list, which may be updated periodically. I just want folks to have the necessary information.
I wouldn't title it that on our website. I would just say link to the DEC pesticide program and let them look at it, because as was pointed out, the list changes and it's not our list. We do, I think in the application, we say if you're going to list pesticides, they should be from the list. So I don't have any problem with having a link to the list, but not necessarily titling it approved pesticides, because that implies it's approved by us, and we're saying if it comes off that list and you put it in your application, then okay, you know. So I don't have a problem with the
Mr. Chairman?
link on there.
So I found it says cannabis users on it, right on the center link. So if we provide a link for cannabis and pesticides, within that web page there is a link to that list. So they would have to find it and have to click it. So if we provide that link, I'm not opposed to having somebody in our office update our website with that link in there. I do want to say that there is a warning on there that says Alaska DEC is providing this information for informational purposes only and does not authorize, permit, endorse, or in any way approve or recommend the use of any pesticides on cannabis for any purpose. That's very clear and bold on there, and I think that it's important that the industry know that and the board know that as well.
Thank you for that. I think a lot of purists would find the entire concept of pesticides on their cannabis quite objectionable, but some people get backed into a corner, so I just want them to have the information readily available, so thank you for that.
So just for the benefit of the industry, if I was a little bit younger and a little bit smarter and had a master's degree in agronomy or chemistry, I'd be going to work as a pesticide consultant to the cannabis industry. Bring organic tools, you know, there are bugs that eat bugs that don't bother marijuana, and be somebody that, you know, cultivators can hire, obviously, to help them deal with what probably is going to be an emerging problem. I mean, with global warming, we're going to see invasive insects, we're going to see invasive, microbials. Over the next 10 years, you're going to see the landscape of your cultivates change significantly, I think. So keeping that in mind, I think that there's certainly a business opportunity for somebody to go into the pest control business for the cannabis industry.
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to point out that the pesticide question is on the application for these cultivators, and so right now it's my understanding that we require them to follow their operating plan, and I just want to make it really clear on the record that just because it's on the list, that doesn't mean that it's on someone's operating plan. So just since we're talking about, okay, you know, these are safe to use, so these are good to use, I just wanted to make that clear for the record.
Thanks, Michael. Okay, Steve, go ahead.
One additional comment, even though, I guess it's a word of caution, even though a cultivator might not be using pesticides, it doesn't necessarily mean that pesticides aren't there. You still want to take a look at their starting materials. For example, if somebody just goes to the backyard, digs up soil, and says, I'm going to start growing marijuana, how do you know what's in that soil? There might be pesticides in there. So I would put that caution out there that even though the application says we're not going to use pesticides, you still want to take a look at the starting materials. Where did they come from?
Okay, great. Thank you. Any more questions for Mr. Krupe on anything? We appreciate what DEC is doing for us. It took a while to get that MOA put together. About a year? We talked about it in Fairbanks about a year ago. But it came out good, and we will be relying on your expertise and your staff to make sure that our testing process is good to ensure the safety and health of consumers and the people of Alaska. So thank you very much for coming this morning.
Thank you.
Okay, which now brings us to tab 16. This is okay. All right. So I was going to say we are now in applications from previous meetings, previous board action taken, tabled applications. Then we're going to get into pending inspection for 6 months and for a year. And let me just, this 1-year list is long. Let me just read these real quick. If you're on the phone, stay on the phone. If you hear somebody's name that you know, we're going to be doing our traditional little roll call. So when we get the pending inspection, we're gonna be looking for Naked Herbalist, AK Slow Burn, Cloudberry Partners, Alaska Marijuana Gardens, Juneau's Green Garden, Alaska Skunk Works, Freedom 49 Farms, Green Sleeves Genetics, Turnigan Herb Company, Grass Station 49, 50 Shades of Green, 420 Grow Tech, Evergreen Extracts, Ghost Farms LLC, Green Ghost Farms LLC, Alaska Fireweed Farm, Brown Owls Cultivation, Glacier Bay Farms, Alaska Kind, Fox Creek, Denali Herb Company, I guess again, Bigfoot Bud, Chong Key Farms, Galactic Herb, Daliwoda Investments number 1, Bluffside Gardens, and Potter's Harvest. So if you folks are online, just stay there, and if you recognize the name that I called out, get a hold of them, tell them to get on so that we can see what's up. Okay, so now, as soon as I type in my password, we will get to Stony Moose, which is product revisions. Okay. So, you want to take this? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, attached are the 12 products for Stony Moose Kitchens, replacing the 6 products considered at the September 2019 meeting. As the products were proposed to be made with either infused vegetable glycerin or infused alcohol as the base ingredient, the board instructed the licensee to submit separate products for different base ingredients. These products were tabled at the October 22nd, 19 special meeting because the licensee was not present.
Okay, so Stony Moose Kitchens, are you here? Not here. Let's see.
The conference is no longer in listen-only mode.
Stony Moose Kitchens, are you on the line?
This is Eric Reamer with Stony Moose Kitchens. Can you hear me?
Okay, okay. Yeah, I heard you there. The music has stopped.
Great.
Oh, the music has, okay, is that hold music? Does that sound like hold music to you guys? Okay, we're gonna hang up and dial right back in.
What's up?
Welcome to the GCI Conference Center. Thank you. Please stand by. You will now be placed into conference. There are 51 participants in the conference. That entry is not valid. Please enter your access code, followed by the pound sign. That entry is not valid. Please enter your access code, followed by the pound sign. That entry is not valid. You have been disconnected. Goodbye. The chairperson has disconnected. The conference will now end. Welcome to the GCI Conference Center. Thank you. Please stand by. If you are the chairperson, press the star key now. You will now be placed into conference. There are 52 participants in the conference.
Somebody got a beat machine? Make some loops.
What tab are you on?
Okay, we're looking for Stony Moose Kitchens. We were on tab 16.
Yeah,
I know they're out.
Eric Reamer on the line.
Okay, good morning.
Morning.
All right. Okay, well, as soon as the beeping quits. Okay, go ahead and, we just read the memo. Go ahead and, introduce yourself and, tell us what you're doing here.
Yeah, my name is Eric Reamer. I'm Stony Moose Kitchen down in Ketchikan, Alaska. You guys asked me to some of my products into two different labeling systems, and so on that, those products back to you. Each of my tinctures, I have 6 tinctures, and each of them are split to different base types, and you'll see they're differentiated by the different sub-names on the product name. For instance, we have Warrior. We've got Warrior 1 for our alcohol tincture, and we have Warrior 3 for our glycerin tincture. With the high voltage, for instance, we have amp for our alcohol tincture and watt for our glycerin tincture, and it kind of goes down like that. So I think sufficient. Is that what you guys have?
Okay, great. We're gonna put the phone back on mute for a minute, folks. We are talking to a licensee, so please mute your phones. Check the phone in your back pocket if you're shuffling down the road, because it sounds like somebody's doing that. Okay, we're gonna put you on mute here for a minute. Okay.
The conference is now in listen-only mode.
I would move that the board approve the additional 12 products requested by Stony Moose Kitchen with delegation.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Miller. Okay, is there any discussion about any of these products? Basically just swapping identifying the base component. Okay, not hearing any discussion for approval of 12 products, modification to their description for license 16991, Stony Moose Kitchens. Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Jaime?
Yes.
Mr. Schulde?
Yes.
I'm a yes, so there you go. You are approved with those. Next one is tab 17, ACP LLC in Port Alexander. I see Mr. Wells. Good morning. Introduce yourself to us.
Lance Wells, attorney. Jessica Smith, legal assistant.
Good morning.
Okay, good morning. Seem to have the Adobe file from hell here.
Okay, so, doing those work real fast.
His words?
Some of them may need out. Y'all got it.
There we go. Thank you very much. That's why we pay her the big bucks. Okay, James?
Mr. Chairman, this application is for a standard marijuana cultivation facility in the city of Port Alexander by ACP LLC, doing business as ACP LLC. A timely objection and anonymous comment were made and were received after the application was approved with delegation at the September MCB meeting. The date the application was initiated was May 7th, 2019. The objection period ended September 6th, 2019. Date under review and queue was 6/20/2019. Incomplete letters were sent July 15th, 2019. The date of the final corrections submitted was July 23rd, 2019. It was determined complete and notices were sent out August 7th, 2019. The local government response date, it lapsed. DEC pesticides response date, they stated they will not use pesticides. Fire marshal pending response, background check status pending. Objections received, September 6, 2019. Other public comments received, yes. Staff questions issued for the board, no.
Okay.
So
Well,
this was,
yeah.
this was the application that we reviewed in Nome, and we had received some comments during the meeting, and the board would act on it and consider the comments at this time.
All right. Wells?
Good morning. Pfister should be on the line with us this morning.
Okay, let's go ahead and...
The conference is no longer in listen-only mode.
Patricia Pfister, Port Alexander, are you on the line?
I am.
Okay, good morning. Go ahead and just introduce yourself, and then we'll let Mr. Wells introduce the board.
I am Patricia Pfister, owner of ACP. I am accompanied by my project manager, Jake Markey, and the mayor of Port Alexander, Deborah Gifford.
All right, okay, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Wells.
Thank you. I think, Mr. Springer, you pretty much summed that up yesterday very well in one of your comments, as no matter where we are and what we do, it seems like there's always someone out there that is trying to tear something down. And as we've seen the response from a neighbor that apparently borders the property where the cultivation is to take place, seems to object to this, primarily to videoing that type of thing. I would first point out that it's not their intent to video the neighbor, but I would also point out legally there is no right to privacy in your driveway or a sidewalk, and the sidewalk they refer to is not a typical sidewalk as one would think of as a sidewalk leading up to it. It's actually a common boardwalk, is what it is. They've also complained about noise from a generator. They are on a generator, as is the entire area there. They've built a structure around that to keep noise to a minimum. I don't believe that this person who filed this letter is blind today. I've also read the other letter that accompanied as well. I'm here to assure you, Pfister, that she is the 100% owner-operator of this business. The mayor is also present today. She's willing to speak as well as to the community's involvement in this, the support of this by the local community, and the employment opportunities that abound for this community in Port Alexander to make employment available for quite a large number of residents there, where income, as you know, is seasonal by nature. We'd ask that this be approved today. Thank you.
Okay, any questions from the board for Mr. Wells right now?
I have one.
Sure,
Sorry, Bruce. I believe we talked about this last time. Didn't they say they had purchased a quiet run generator?
Yes, sir. It was brought up last time, and they in fact have, and they built a surrounding structure around that as well.
Okay, go ahead.
Couple of questions. So I'm looking at the site plan, and with regard to cameras and lights, security lights, are the lights going to be on all the time, or are they going to be on motion sensors?
They would be on. I would direct that question to Ms. Pfister, but I believe that most of the time the lights would be on in the evening hours. We're going to pull back our operating plan here in just a second. But as far as light and overshine, that type of thing, they can be adjusted in such a way where they don't affect your neighbor.
Okay, I guess that seemed a legitimate concern. I'm looking at the proximity of the
Certainly.
structure on lot 14, and I don't know where the bedrooms are in that facility or in that home, but I think that is a legitimate concern, is that the light bleeding over. Also, with regard to the generator, I have more this than probably anybody in the state. For reasons I won't go into, but I'm really familiar with generators and noise control. Do we have any idea what the decibel output is of this generator?
No, I don't. I would refer to Mr. Markey, but in answer to the light question, those are going to be motion activated and sensitive lights.
They are, okay. It would be helpful to understand how loud the generator is. I mean, I know that, 1,250 kilowatt generators can be quieted down to less than the background noise in this room. It just takes an incredible amount of money. So we've heard that this is a quiet generator. Just how quiet is it? Because I could see somebody has a generator. My other question too is, where is the generator located? I see on the site plan that there's a shed. I don't see where the generator is located.
If I may, I'm going to defer to Mr. Markey, the project manager, at this time. Mr. Markey, could you questions, please?
Yes, I can. So first off, I don't know what the decibels are on the generator, but I can definitely look that up for you. We got a cat whisper quiet generator. It is in fact quieter than any other generator that's around us, including the neighbor that's complained. Everybody in this town runs on generators. There is no power here, so that's where we're at on that. The generator is located on the back side of the shop, which is inside a closure itself, and then has another closure that's around it as well. So there shouldn't be any issue on that aspect. As far as lighting goes, we were going to have full-time lighting on the side where all the doors are, and then motion lighting on the other side where our neighbor's house is at.
So looking at the site plan, you're saying on the east side, the lights are going to be motion sensitive. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then the generator, where is that with respect to the main structure? I see it.
The generator is off of the west side back of the lot.
Okay.
So opposite of our neighbor.
Okay. So your structure is between your neighbor's home and the generator.
That is correct.
Okay. Okay. I have no other questions.
Okay, oops. Be here. So, Mayor, you care to give us your thoughts on the economic impact that this might have on your community there?
Hi, Board. This is Deborah Gifford, Mayor of Port Alexander. Upon the conception by ACP to put in a grow operation here, they went to some length to inform the community of their intent. We had several community meetings about it, and the fact that it does bring in employment opportunity, which is much needed, especially in the off-seasons from fishing, was of great value, it seemed, to the community. I heard no negative responses from anyone concerning this operation going forward.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Pfister, how many employees do you anticipate having, various phases of operation?
I have 10.
Ms. Pfister?
Yes.
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit. I was asking, how many employees do you anticipate having during your phases of operation?
There will be 10.
I'm not sure if you can hear Patricia, but we're looking at anywhere from 10 to 15 employees through, part-time and full-time to run it the way it sits now.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead.
I believe I heard him say 10 to 15 employees.
Yeah, I heard that too. Okay, Mr. Markey, neither you or Joe are on the license, is that correct?
No, sir, we are not.
Okay, and so Ms. Pfister, I've asked this question of other applicants before. I don't know if I asked you the last time. So do you have experience cultivating marijuana? Have you, gone out and looked at other similar operations there in Southeast Alaska? Are you familiar with, exactly what's involved, both from the standpoint of managing a cultivation operation and being able to meet your tax obligations? We have a list of about 46 cultivators that are behind on their taxes to the state. Have you, are you anticipating that you're going to have sufficient cash flow from the beginning to both make payroll and expenses and make your, the term really should be to submit the sales taxes that you collect on behalf of the state.
Absolutely. I personally am not, I don't smoke pot. I have had an interest in marijuana for a long time and its cultivation before I moved to Alaska. And after moving to Alaska and then meeting the Markeys and having this discussion, I thought it was a really good investment for the community if they objected. We had the meetings, and we did. Now, my experience with it is just watching my husband cultivate new plants, but that's about it. And the main reason, I feel very comfortable with Jake Markey being the project manager and being able to oversee all of this.
Okay. Are there any questions for Ms. Pfister? Go ahead.
Just really one question. Obviously, your neighbor had some concerns. Have you met with them? Have you talked to them, told them about the generator, the lights, and...
Yes, we have.
We actually have had several meetings with her, and she's actually on the city board that approved us to have this here. I'm not sure where the hard feelings came in with her. It's not really our concern why, or, you can't explain what other people feel. But she is well aware. We have talked to her several times, and we are going to accommodate her in every way, shape, or form that we possibly can. We relocated the generator since that was a concern. We've changed our lighting to accommodate them as well. So, by all means, we've done everything that we possibly can to make it comfortable for her and the rest of us.
The last question I would ask is Ms. Browning on the phone?
Yep, that's... Karina Browning, are you on the line? Okay, I don't see her there. Just she's 28 feet away from the building. Go ahead and review us one more time what your odor control program is going to be, and have you observed some of the issues, NOVs, that we've had for odor issues, and the fact that, maybe filters need to get changed a little more often than they are sometimes? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, definitely. We're going to be using charcoal filters mostly for smell. That'll be on our intake and exhaust as well. We want to keep the air clean coming in as going out. And as far as researching the NOVs and things like that, I have not done that as far as odor control goes, but I have been a grower for many years, and I've never had an issue. I mean, I've grown in big cities and everywhere else, everywhere, California, Oregon, Washington, and running it with charcoal filters, we've never had a complaint. Or other neighboring businesses or residents.
Okay, and the reason I ask that is a couple of folks have maybe discovered some best practices for dealing with that, and I guess part of that goes with it gets a little humid there in Port Alexander, doesn't it?
It is, yes. We'll be running.
Yeah. I'm just curious what sort of issues might arise again on control, in a rainy situation, or, low cloud situation. You might get a little bit of inversion there, but that hopefully your neighbor there will be satisfied with that as well. So, James.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to state that this is kind of a nightmarish situation, probably for enforcement, if we do receive complaints about odor or the such. So I have a simple question. Do you guys have any type of law enforcement present in Port Alexander?
No, we do not.
Okay, and looking at the map, I see that you guys are on the southern tip of, or the southeast tip of Baranof Island?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Are you accessible? Do you have a runway, or is it just by seaplane and boat?
We have seaplane. We actually have a gentleman here that runs the charter plane here, and he does all of our flying for us.
I guess I just want to reiterate the chairman's concern about, you have people that obviously have concerns about noise and some other things, and if those people are vocal now, they're going to be vocal towards enforcement, and I would just ask that you be cognizant of that and make sure that you're on top of your filters and odor.
We will definitely be on top of everything. I don't want any issues. We don't want any phone calls. We don't, it's not good for any of us, and it's truly just a waste of time for everything. So, we will do our best to keep it as sharp as possible.
Okay, so is there a motion on, license 20716?
Excellent question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Currently, Port Alexander is a local operating community that spreads the sale of alcohol to affect marijuana.
They're not a retail, for one thing, cultivate, but...
Where do you guys plan on selling your marijuana to? Or who do you plan on selling it to? It has to be economically feasible to have this cultivation, or we're not doing our job.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question, if that was for me.
The question was what's your market? I'm assuming that to develop a large cultivate in a community of 100 people that's accessible only by float plane and runs off a generator, you've got a pretty substantial. You've done some pretty substantial market research. So where are you expecting to?
I've actually met with both dispensaries in Sitka and pretty much all of the dispensaries in Juneau, and all of them are willing to take product. I'm a really good grower, so the product is going to be a lot better than most product that I've seen out there, and I'm not trying to sound cocky or anything, but it's reality. I see no issue in selling the product just in Juneau, Ketchikan, and Sitka. With that said, we're not going to be making nearly as much as other growers do, but we are going to be making a living for everybody here, and that was a concept behind it all from the get-go. I mean, we have to have generators, and we work hard every day just to survive, so if we can have employment here for people, even if we're not making the profit that other people are, it's definitely beneficial to us.
Yeah, I give it a shot.
Just one quick question. I noticed on the memo that accompanies this application, it says background check status pending. Does everybody involved have their marijuana handler's cards?
Everybody here has applied or has gotten their handler's card. So I believe there is maybe 3 or 4 of us that haven't received it in the mail yet, but everybody has applied.
I'd also like to point out, since this meeting was noticed, that Fire Marshal
Okay, so do we have a motion on license 20716 ACP LLC?
Chair?
Yes, sir.
What you're looking for, basically, we approved this
I guess we did, didn't we?
with delegation.
Yeah, no, you're right.
This is simply reviewing the objection.
No, you're
The only motion would be to rescind our action, and I'm not willing to make that at this point.
Yeah, the objections, I think the one from the neighbor is completely legitimate. I'd probably say the same thing, but I didn't take it as, a harsh no. So,
I would have approved this as opposed to with delegation at this point. It looks like the only thing left is the background check, and I think some questions should be closer as to whether or not those are.
I have great.
So if sorry.
The conference is now in listen-only mode.
Or pending, we don't have that information right now, so I think it would be appropriate to leave it with delegation. And then if those things are resolved, we can work with staff to get
That's fine. We
that
can get
resolved.
those to you. That's fine.
Okay, very good. Let's move on to license 10577, 10578, Alaska Leaf.
Hello, Dana Wellstein, attorney for Alaskan Leaf, and Lauren Dreyer is on the phone.
Okay. Is he here in Anchorage?
He is here in Anchorage. I'm not sure, and I would defer to the Assistant Attorney General, which I missed your name earlier, and I apologize. There is the regulation project about overlapping spaces is tab 77 on this agenda. We anticipated last meeting having the overlapping spaces on the agenda, but I think the notice didn't get ran or something. And so they reran it, and so the period just closed October 30th, so it is on your agenda for consideration, so I'm not sure if it's appropriate to talk about this subject, and again, I would defer to your counsel.
We'll give him a few minutes.
They're conferring, I believe what we've done for the last couple meetings where these are co-located on the same meeting is to see if what you guys are going to be discussing resolved through the regulation that's occurring.
Yeah, so maybe we should just hold off on this one until we get to the regulation.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Well, just till we get the regulation. Okay, what brings us to Alaska Grown Cannabis, tab 19.
Jan Wellstein, attorney for Alaska Grown Cannabis.
Kala Peacock, owner of Alaskan Grown Cannabis.
And so this issue, the City of Bethel protested the license for the lack of conditional use. Since the time from last meeting, they have withdrawn their protest and issued a conditional protest, so a protest pending a conditional use permit. And then I'll let Kala talk to the zoning issues and the fire marshal safety issues.
Yeah, so when it comes to the fire marshal, basically we're working with them right now. We just got all of our plans submitted to them, and we are just working with them step by step to make sure that we can use the building safely.
This is for the furniture store?
Yes. Okay. And the issue with it is the 7-plex that's attached to it. We are working with the landlord. We built a 2-hour firewall, but has the adjoining wall. And at this point, we're just working with the fire marshal to make sure everything's sufficient.
They were willing to tear that down when they wanted to put a liquor store there.
Right. So the building is pretty, not in great condition. So my client is trying to revitalize it to make it usable. And so
I'm talking about the apartment next door. Yeah. When Sea-Line wanted to put a liquor store there, they were willing to kick everybody out and tear it down to make parking. Have they talked about demolishing that?
Yeah, and that's one of the options that we're looking at, depending on what the fire marshal says, is just completely demolishing that part of the building. Jenna, I think we got a little confusion there. The Quonset hut is in good condition. It was remodeled. They've been working on it, working on the bottom, getting it everything structurally sound, and we're just kind of in the holding pattern with the fire marshal.
And you're waiting for a conditional use permit from the city.
Yes, so the application is almost together. My client has to get me 3 more bits of information, and then it will be submitted.
Okay.
And it's possible there could be a representative from the city of line.
Yeah, go ahead and open the phone up.
The conference is no longer in listen-only mode.
Okay, City of Bethel, are you on the line? Maybe Lori? Somebody? Doesn't appear to be. Okay, so,
The conference is now in listen-only mode.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Well, good. Thank you for letting us know where you're at.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, this brings us to tab 20. Open up.
I'm sorry, I just want to clarify. It was my understanding that this application was tabled from the previous meeting, and at least the memo doesn't record that any action was taken. Did you guys want to approve with delegation or have it brought back to you?
Mr. Chair, your mic's not on, you're not recorded.
Yeah, I'm just mumbling anyway. I think we should wait till we hear from the city. It's gonna be a while. They've got a new planning director, and I don't know whether you even scheduled a planning commission hearing for this application. So it's we may have something by the January meeting. That would kind of be my expectation. And if we have that, then.
But Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think what Michael was saying was we tabled this motion, and we have now brought it off the table. We've dealt with it. We've made no motion to staff, whether this is tabled again or whether we approved it with delegation, waiting for the conditional use permit. We've basically taken no action, and I'm not sure we should leave it at that. It should. So I would make a motion that we would table this until the January meeting.
Okay, I'll second that motion.
All right. Seconded to table Alaska grown cannabis to the January meeting. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of tabling till January signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. So
Thanks for keeping us
officially tabled. All right. Poking up. Good morning. And introduce yourselves to us.
Donald Davidson III, 907 promos, token up.
Gas, 907 promos.
Jessica Smith, legal assistant.
Lance Wells, attorney.
Okay, so we had a meeting on the phone with the state demographer who went over these numbers. What has happened since then?
At the end of our conversation, you had asked us if we could achieve more signatures within 2 days for the October 25th deadline. So we went to Toke, we contacted people that were in support of the store and allowed them to take some petitions and go to anybody that maybe hadn't signed yet that we weren't able to get a hold of, basically scrambling any means necessary to get the amount of signatures that you guys required for the 2/3 majority so the store would open. We achieved those signatures, it looks like, from the email we received, and if you have any questions furthermore, I'd be happy to answer.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Have you reviewed the memo from the AMCO staff related to the signatures? And in particular, there's some about duplicate names. There's the last batch of signatures submitted contains 6 pages of signatures collected on October 22, 23. 4 of 6 pages, not a single individual signed is registered to vote. On page 55, 2 of the 4 signers are registered to vote, and on page 56, 2 of the 20 are registered to vote. I was just wondering if you had any comment to the detail that was in the memo from staff. Apparently not.
Yeah,
Is that a question for us?
To you, gentlemen, yes.
Yeah. Well, we have no way to cross-reference any of the names. We don't know who registered to vote. We didn't ask them about that. Other than that's the memo from the director, that I don't have anything furthermore to say.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead.
Through the chair. So you're saying you couldn't cross-reference the duplicates on here with the pages that you had prior?
We didn't have petitioning. So the petitioning process has been almost 4 months. So different sets of signatures were submitted at different times. We didn't have all those signatures available, and we had to use a fax machine from a local business there to get the signatures that we did in the day and a half back to AMCO before the 25th. So we didn't have time to sit down and cross-reference any of the duplicates or anything like that.
Because I'm looking at a lot of the duplicates happen in August and September, well before October.
Yeah, there's definitely duplicates. When we reached out for help, the previous petitioning forms weren't made available to people, so, you know, we just weren't able to be proficient enough to cross-reference as we were petitioning for the next signatures.
Thank you.
I might also add, you were inquiring about the number of people registered to vote. As you're aware, this is the Toke community. Not everybody out there is certainly registered to vote. Many people live a subsistence-type lifestyle out there. So not being registered to vote, any of these people is not surprising. As to the number of duplicates, I think I saw 2 or 3 duplicates on there when I reviewed those sheets. I see we have 605 signatures. Even omitting those, we're still above the 579 required for the 2/3 vote. As the board's aware, this has been a really complicated process that they've had to go through, not only obtaining the 2/3 signatures within the 5 miles, but as far as getting local notice out, that type of thing. There weren't radio stations that would carry it. There's no local publication. They had to serve by mail to everyone out there. I think it was 3 consecutive times. Multiple signatures. It's been very difficult. We've worked very closely with the AMCO board. I know we've worked with Michael as well, and we'd ask the board's approval today. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
I might remind Mr. Wells that at least 2 years now, due to state law change, if a person files for their PFD, they're automatically registered to vote. And so while it may be in rural areas they don't want to register to vote, if they file for a PFD. So I think the concern is, are they residents? Are they real people? Because technically, if they file for their PFD, they'd be registered to vote. And so that was the implication I read into the memo. It may not be the one that staff put into the memo. But to have a significant number of signers not registered to vote tells me they're either new to the community, haven't filed for the PFD, which is also strange in this town or this state where everybody's complaining about the fact they're not getting what they think in the PFD. So that's my concern. And I think at least that's what I'm reading into it. I just want you to be aware that's what I'm thinking.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
I can actually, I believe, speak to staff intent when that portion of the memo was written. We were reviewing the signatures, and it wasn't necessarily that there were a lower number of voters overall on the petitions. It was found strange that the subsequent submission to our previous meeting had such a low number compared to the number of other registered voters in previous submissions. So that there would be so many more in the previous submissions than in this one. So there were a lot of registered voters, or relatively a lot, submission or 2, but the subsequent submission had, I believe, maybe 1 or 2. And so we found the discrepancy in the statistics strange.
If I may,
Go ahead.
after receiving this memo, selected 5 names at random out of the last 5 pages, and of those, I did some random Googling and basic Googling of those names, and 3 of the 5 I found prior, like old PFD garnishments on, and oftentimes and frequently when people are frequently garnished upon, perhaps they don't continue to file, and if they hadn't been filed or garnished within the last 2 years, perhaps they may not be registered to vote. The disproportionate numbers are disproportionate, but that's all I have to add.
I just want to, Mr. Wells, I would not say that because people live a subsistence lifestyle, they don't choose to register to vote. In fact, one of the ways that we protect subsistence lifestyle is through the ballot box. So please don't suggest that that might be a reason. I'm at least 40 years ago, I was pretty familiar with the lifestyle and the people who live in Toke. And certainly there are people who don't want nothing to do with the government but they are not showing up on the voter rolls because they might be living a subsistence lifestyle. And I'm just saying that as the rural representative to the board. Thank you.
Sorry about that. I don't know why people choose not to vote or don't apply for a PFD, but in my private practice, I can certainly say I have clients that choose not to do both.
Sure. No, I understand. Okay, so in the petition, do I see any no boxes checked?
I don't know.
A lot of pages, but are there any no boxes checked on here?
I don't believe so. I believe most people that chose not to sign, they just simply didn't sign or walked away or shut the door in our face. That was a very standard thing.
When you presented the petitions or when people you asked petitions around for the second round, did you say you can sign this and check yes or no?
If they were willing to have a conversation with us, of course. I mean, there is still currently a petition at the front door of our building. You can walk up right now today and sign it still.
Okay, but I just find it, curious, I suppose, that, and I understand saying no to signing a petition. I've said, no to signing ballot proposition petitions in the past, so I can understand that. But there is, some folks on here who've commented that suggest that when they said, yeah, well, let me check the no box, they were discouraged from doing so.
Absolutely incorrect on either of our parts.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, go ahead.
In review of these, I also noticed that they used a different format on these petition forms on the box column that you're requesting or asking about. On some pages it asks, are you in support of this petition? And there's a yes or no box. On other pages it says, do you understand this petition? And there's yes or no boxes. So there's a discrepancy there where, and to me, there's a huge difference between do you understand or are you in support of this? Why were two different forms used?
I'm sorry, your question again, Chief Holscher, or Acting Director Holscher.
Why, Chief Holscher's fine. I guess my question is why were two separate types of petitions used with two different formats? Because the last question, the defining question, is do you understand this petition or are you in support of this petition? There's a big difference there. I can understand something and not agree with it.
And I think really some of these, the petition forms, the first one indicates, please provide your printed name, signature, birth date, physical location of your residence, date, and check the appropriate box. By signing this petition, you were stating that you were in favor of having a licensed marijuana establishment in your community. These are forms that we're not generating. These are forms that are generated through the state for petitions.
So the state provided both of these two different forms.
These are state-generated forms. We didn't make these.
Were they supplied by the AMCO office?
Off the website,
Whose website?
the AMCO website.
Is that our website? I'm happy to show them to you. It'd be in when you're searching to open a store where there is no government, in that, it's actually an MJ form, and at the bottom of the MJ form is the petition.
Let's take a flyer here, turn the phone back on. Let's see if anybody from Toke is on the line.
The conference is no longer in listen-only mode.
Okay, this is the Marijuana Control Board, Anchorage, and we are the application for toking up in Toke. Is there anybody from Toke that would like, and whoever's calling their dog, kind of mute your phone, please. Is there anybody from Toke that would like to address this application? Okay, I don't think I hear anybody from Toke on the line, so go ahead and mute the phone again.
The conference is now in listen-only mode.
Okay,
some of the concerns, and of course, once the product leaves your front door, it's not your concern, but people that are southbound on the Alaska Highway are gonna go through customs, and not everybody is real smart, and, there's a likelihood customs is gonna be, Canadian customs will be picking off products or labels from your establishment, maybe from others. Are you planning any kind of education for travelers that, not only if you're south, you really shouldn't have any of this on you, and it's 200 miles to Fairbanks, and about 200 miles to Anchorage, and it's a long drive, and, don't drive impaired. I mean, I know you're not looking at just the Tok market. I know you see what the tourism traffic is through there. It's huge. You guys got the same thought that, people who were at our July 2015 meeting saying we need on-site consumption for cruise ship passengers. Okay, so I know you guys are going for the tourism market. What are your plans to inform those tourists who are going to go, oh, wow, man, I'm in Tok, and there's a store called Tok and Up. They'll go in and they'll spend a couple $100 in your store and, hot box in the RV or whatever. So what are your thoughts as responsible potential licensees in that regard?
Absolutely. So, it's our intention that we're gonna have a flat screen as you walk into it's a very small storefront, you can see from the plan. That's gonna have like a PowerPoint going through it, about our menu, different things, how to consume safely, as well as far as the Border Patrol goes. I've talked to a lady named Genevieve. I was doing the trek over the top snow machine trip, and she notified me that you could carry less than 30 grams of marijuana through the border starting October 31st of last year. Obviously, I will not encourage that to anybody. I will definitely stay on top of the regulation and talk with the Customs and Border Patrol to make sure there aren't any issues, especially people that are traveling not through the border, like on the trek over the top, where anything that you have has to be claimed. If you bring it, you need to claim it, and I believe pay a duty on that. But I didn't actually go through with that process, so I haven't done it personally, but that's what she notified me.
She was with Canadian Customs.
Yes, sir.
Hadn't heard that before, but that makes things interesting.
And let me add, if I may, I've had several clients that have this similar type issue, and we have developed signs that go onto the front of the buildings. I suggested that to Mr. Guest as well, advising people about traveling here in this particular case, crossing international borders, cruise ships, that type of thing. And I think it's become fairly common in a number of the retail stores I've certainly seen.
Okay.
And that would be in place here as well.
All right. Lieutenant Jaime, looking at you again as public safety representative. I know we hear a lot of reports from Colorado about impaired. And I'm keeping in mind these long stretches of the Alcan and the Tok cutoff. Okay, we're not driving around the block in Anchorage or Fairbanks. These are people who are not familiar with those roads. They might have moose jump out in front of them and any number of things. And so we hear reports out of Colorado, particularly from law enforcement there, about cannabis impaired driving. Has the state troopers in Alaska noticed any particular uptick in cannabis impaired driving that you're aware of? And of course, you're a fish cop, so you wouldn't necessarily be the highway patrol stats, but
I'm actually in the process of putting together a paper document associating impaired driving with marijuana versus alcohol. Currently, there is nothing out there. Unfortunately, the state the troopers, the training receive, it's not we have A-RIDE training, which is basic training to show if someone's impaired by marijuana or other drugs. And as a state, we're still increasing our DREs, our drug recognition experts, but those are still far and few between. So the data's still getting calculated out there.
Okay.
So, no real numbers.
Thanks. All right, that's fine. And I just waiting for the record. It's not. The statements aren't pejorative for or against your application.
But you are in a unique spot there.
Yeah, and we've talked with the 3 troopers that are posted in Toke. They did choose not to support our store, but we've opened that relationship with them and let them know that, hey, if you find a container, our label on it, we'll be able to go back in our cameras, and we're open to be working with law enforcement to discourage any sort of activity that you're talking about.
Okay, and of course you guys are gonna be driving some long distances, moving your product in and moving your money out. There's no bank in Toke.
Denali Bank.
Is there a bank there?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll be a son of a gun. I remember I woke up one morning and Eddie Young was shaking my tent. He said, wake up, the bank just got robbed.
Oh, he said hello, by the
Oh,
way.
he did? Oh, right on. Okay, good. Well, we want to hear from Joe about his application. But anyways, okay. All right, are there any other questions or comments for the applicant? So we got how many signatures now? 605, and how many did the demographer say would be accurate number? How many? 576, okay.
And just while you guys are considering, we looked into the petition language information, and it looks like it's petition pages pulled from the AB-12 form and the MJ-12 form, so someone probably just went to go grab the petition from the alcohol side, and so that's why those pages have that discrepancy.
Okay. Toke has an unincorporated community corporation, don't they? You know?
Nothing there.
Really? They used to. Somebody gave them money to build a clinic and
They
buy
have
a fire truck.
it's a business, commerce group.
Yeah, Chamber of Commerce.
Chamber of Commerce,
Yeah, but
thank you.
I think they used to have it, and I don't even know if unincorporated community corporations are still a thing. So, okay. So do we have a motion on? This is for approval, right? We didn't. This is for approval. For approval. Okay. Right. Okay. So do we have a motion on license 20844 token up?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve license application number 20844 Token Up Retail Store.
For second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Miller. Any discussion that we haven't already had? That's with delegation, yeah, that's with delegation, yes. And you got the fire marshal, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, you asked for discussion, I just want to
go ahead.
I just want to make a quick statement here saying, there's a lot of strong objections from the community. Some of the strongest ones I've read. And there's still some questionable signatures out there, so I just wanted to put that out there for the record and let you know I'm going to vote no on this.
Do you guys have access to the amco.regs email? So on the website, I'd ask, I know I directed this at you last time. You said there was no supporters or no letters of support. I reached out to some people in Toke and asked if they wanted to do a letter that the board might appreciate that. And I'm not sure if the emails have been gone through or not, but I know I specifically talked to 7 or 8 people that should have sent emails if they would like to. That might counteract some of the letters that you're referencing.
So the amco.reg, I just want to clear up real quickly. The amco.regs email is going to be for open regulations projects and making comments on that. That is not generally a communication that goes to the board. So we have not included it.
Okay. That'd be my fault for referencing that email. I guess I wasn't sure who to have them send it to.
You know if we got any emails about Token Up? Are you aware?
I do not have that information right now. I believe that the individual monitoring that email would have forwarded them to the appropriate location, but I don't have a status on those emails at this time.
Okay, yeah, and I looked at the objections also, and 2,800 feet from the school. Where exactly are you guys located at here?
Next to the shop, right on the highway.
Okay. All right, any other discussion? Okay, not hearing any, I guess we're ready to vote. Mr. Jones?
I can't find a reason not to, but, I'd rather not, but I'll vote yes.
Okay. Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Jaime?
No.
Mr. Schulte?
Yes.
And I kind of share, there's no reason not to vote for it, so I will vote yes. So, there you go.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna take a, reasonable break here. 10:40. Close the signal.
Okay, brownie points to anybody who can identify this famous musical line. Break time's over, I got a job. You can tell me at intermission. Okay. Break time's over, phone's off. Please. All right, we've got the phone back on. Quarter back on. All right. Okay, 10:54, we are back on the record. We are now at tab, okay, all right, this is pending inspection. So, let me just run down this list. If you're here, standard herbalist, slow burn, Cloudberry, Alaska Marijuana Gardens. You slow burn, okay. Run through this real quick. Juno Green Garden, Skunk Works, Talkeetna, Freedom 49, Green Sleeves Genetics, Turning and Herb, Grass Station 49, 50 Shades of Green, okay, 420 Grow Tech, Evergreen Extracts, and Green Ghost Farms. Well, by golly, you've got more hands to raise than you own, so come on up. And this is our time where we just kind of do a roll call of people that are on. Pending inspection. This is pending inspection for over 6 months. So go ahead and start with the first one here. This Miss Weltzine.
Sure. Janet Weltzine for Alaska Slow Burn. So they think that they're going to open within a year. So they think they're going to open September 2020 because they had to get, they have a retail at this location, but then they have a retail on Tudor that they are just getting off the ground and hopefully calling for an inspection on the Tudor location within the next 3 weeks. So this license is a cultivation that's attached to the first retail that they have, and it's not built out yet. They get Tudor off before they build it out. So we anticipate September 2020.
Okay, so they've got no permitting issues. It's just...
No permitting issues. They have to do basically a whole parking lot and do all the Title 21 from Anchorage upgrades to that parking lot.
Okay, all right. So who else you got?
Next one I have on here is Juno.
Oh, go ahead.
That's it. And I certainly understand, business and that kind of stuff, but, this was approved 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, they're talking about opening 4 years from the date we approve it. And I'm not going to argue it here, but I think we may need to consider, if you pay and we go through the review and we sit around and at some point in time, we gotta say, you gotta reapply this. You haven't started it, we canceled it. You know, 4 years from the date that we approve it, they're gonna anticipate opening. I think that's just too much. And I'm not gonna do anything now, but I think maybe at the end of the meeting or something, we talk about future regulations. We need to look at something like that. I just think that's not acceptable.
We did take action on a couple of meetings ago on a license that had been out for about that long, so that certainly wouldn't be unprecedented, so.
Yeah, sorry, we're talking about Alaska slow burn?
Correct.
We are talking about Alaska slow burn cultivation.
According to this, it was approved in July of 2017. That's like 26 months, 7 months?
Quick on the math.
It's still true. I mean, it's still 3 years. I was off a year, but
okay.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I understand what Mr. Jones is saying. It's really tough to get spun up here, and particularly in Anchorage. I mean, Anchorage is probably one of the toughest cities to get this going. I get what Mr. Jones is saying, but at the same time, it doesn't cost the state, doesn't inconvenience the state in any way. The only pitfall that I see to the great lapse of time is the potential for regs to change somewhere along the way, and that's a legitimate concern. But other than that, simply, you know, having to wait, you know, somebody might be trying to get financing, they might have personal issues, they might have, you know, approval issues, fire department or whoever. So I would just caution the board against, you know, being too hasty and pulling the plug on some of these.
Mr. Schulte, all we're doing is hearing from the licensees on what their status is. That's what this agenda item is, and that's what seems explained to us. That was a sidebar comment by Mr. Jones that, and he's correct that, in fact, we have rescinded at least one license that was out there for an awfully long time. But we're not, under this agenda item, we're not looking at taking any action.
I appreciate the time to express my thoughts, Mr. Chairman. Sure.
And just to go to Mr.'s point, we would be happy to, at some point, if the board would like us to update the operating plan, to update it so that it matches the new regulations and stuff. I think that would be a reasonable regulation project, too.
Sure. Okay, and who else you got in here?
Juno's Green Garden. Okay. And this one is it got transferred, and so the transfer was effectuated March 7, 2019. This is a sole owner, Elizabeth Ramoski, and she's trying to sell a piece of property that she has in order to afford building out the Juno's Green Garden and the evergreen extracts, which is also on this list. So she's working on it, but she doesn't have the capital right now, so she's trying to sell a piece of property to do this.
Okay.
Okay. And the next one is 50 Shades of Gray, and actually they're really close to calling Chief Holster staff for an inspection. She's got all of her lights up. She just needs a couple more tweaks, and then she'll be giving Chief Holster a call, or Jason Davies a call to set up an inspection. So that should be not on your list next meeting.
Okay, so you did say 50 Shades of Green.
I'm sorry, I did say that, did I? 50 Shades of Gray, I'm sorry. Oh, green. Jeez, Louise. Lord. I messed that one up.
So they're about ready for inspection.
Correct.
Good.
And then green, I already mentioned evergreen extracts. And then Green Ghost Farms, that's a limited out in Houston. He is almost ready. He's just working through the last more fire marshal issues, and then he should be calling for an inspection soon.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else in the room that we called out? Okay, let's turn the phone on.
The conference is no longer in listen-only mode.
Okay, folks, we are doing licenses and pending inspection for over 6 months. Is Naked Herbalist in Willow online?
Yes, sir. Miles France.
Okay, go ahead. Tell us what's up.
We had a small fire this the McKinley fire. It rolled through our property. We lost our residents. We lost a bunch of vehicles. Fortunately, the facility got a little scorched but did not burn down. And we lost some equipment too. So that has slowed things down this summer.
Okay, well, I'm sorry to hear about your house there, and that's fine. We appreciate that update, and good luck.
I didn't hear you.
So I said thank you for the update, and sorry about hearing about your house and property getting burned up. But we just needed that update. So maybe you can. When do you think you'll be ready to give us another? Should we just wait a couple of meetings before we put you back on the list to hear from you?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, so that'll push us getting towards spring and maybe be making something. Okay, real good. All right, thank you. Cloudberry Partners.
President Lily Shimmick, owner of Cloudberry Cannabis, along with my project manager and father, David Shimmick. Good morning.
Yes,
okay, so
David Shimmick, landlord
in the September meeting, you said. Yeah, in the September meeting, you said you're looking for a partner to provide new funding. So what's going on?
We've actually had a couple of discussions after the meeting, probably as a result of the folks on the record or on the phone. But that has not panned out, and we're still seeking funding by one way or another.
Okay, all right. We'll look to hear something from you in January.
Hopefully so. Thank you.
Yeah, because you got approved in May of 2017, so that's pushing some time. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alaska Marijuana Gardens, Wild Coyote Inc.
Yeah, hello. This is Armando Gonzalez with Alaska Marijuana
Hi, good morning.
Gardens.
Yep.
Good morning. So we are getting very close. We still have some plumbing and electrical to get done. Our security cameras are on the way, but the building remodel is basically done. We're just doing interior work, getting everything in order. That way we can call for inspection.
Okay, so you figure, I don't know, what do you figure?
We're hoping by the new year. I don't know. But it could be a month or two after that, but we're hoping right around the new year. I got it.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for your time.
Yep. Okay, Alaska Skunk Works, Talkeetna.
Yes, this is Andrea Gunter for Alaska Skunk Works.
Hi, good morning. So, let's see, in February you said you estimated to begin operating in August. What's going on?
Well, actually, you guys had us at the September meeting. I guess it just didn't get noted, but even since then we've been just plugging along. I had the plumbing inspector out on Monday. That got signed off. Electrical is like 90%. The electrical inspector happened to be in the area, so he knows we're close, and he'll be back. Security wiring is about 50% done. So as soon as I get the electrical wrapped up, Chief Rock will come in. And then it's
okay. So what do you think? Another month or so?
So the building's 9,600 square feet, and as a general contractor, I'd say that sheetrock's going to take 6 weeks, all the way through paint.
I missed you saying you're still working on sheetrock. Okay, well, we'll put you on the agenda in January if James hasn't heard from you by then.
I think that's great, and I did email a couple updates. I didn't hear back. Do you still want email updates?
Those helpful email updates. Yep.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Okay.
So go ahead and keep pushing them in. That's
okay,
fine.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you very much.
Sure.
All right. Page the right way. Okay, Freedom 49 Farms in Houston. Are you on the line?
Yes, I am. Good morning.
Okay, good morning. So you get your license in December 2018. You got approved for December 2018. You got your license issued on January 25th. So where are you at?
Well, we made the case last Tuesday to enforcement, and
I think we were getting close.
We're scheduling the inspection, I believe, sometime towards the end of next week.
Okay, just one second. Folks, if I haven't called on you, if you're just listening, please mute your phones. Freedom 49, you said you're on the verge of requesting inspection?
Yes, I called, for the inspection, last Tuesday, and I believe
we're straight.
for end of next week.
Yeah, okay, great, wonderful, that's all we needed to hear, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, Green Sleeves Genetics in Anchorage, you on the line?
Hello, this is Paul Dunham with Green Sleeves.
Good morning.
Good morning. We are actively working on finishing up our permits for Anchorage. It's taking a lot longer than anyone expected. We're still actively working on it. We have all of the designs and everything complete and about to be handed in.
Okay, and what's your timeline after that? Then you get construction after that, huh?
Yes, it should be pretty quick. Within, a month or two, construction. Really, the time's going to be waiting for the city to approve, and then get inspections.
Okay, real good. Well, you're a pretty fresh license anyway, so good. Maybe we'll check on you in January just to see how things are coming.
All right, sounds good.
Thanks very much. Turnigan Herb Company in Girdwood.
Yes.
Good morning. Is icy
This
out
is
there?
Seth Mullen with the Turnigan Herb Company.
Yeah. How's your roads this morning?
Not as bad as in Anchorage. It was just wet in Girdwood primarily. It was still just unusually warm down here.
Yeah, I guess that's Girdwood's motto, not as bad as Anchorage. Okay.
Yeah, evidently it was terrible for people coming in from Eagle River. Heard of a bunch of accidents, but that's beside the point, I guess.
Yeah. Yes. How you coming on your store?
Progressing nicely. We took a little bit of a hit timeline-wise because we're involved in litigation with another issue. But we're back on track regarding this one, and I'm looking to have this wrapped up hopefully by this spring. The start of the spring.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. We'll. All right. Maybe we'll put you on the. We might call you in the January meeting just to see if you're making any more progress there.
Okay.
But you got your permits and everything, right? You're just.
That's correct. Yes. Timeline took a hit. That's all, just because we had to divert attention elsewhere.
Right. Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, maybe we won't call you in January. It sounds like you're in good shape. Just keep as things go along. Just keep the office informed.
Absolutely. You've got it.
Okay. Great.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
You bet. Thank you. Okay. Grass Station 49.
Yeah, Gary Evans here.
Hey, good morning.
Morning. Give you guys a rundown on that. It burnt down in May. So at this time, the property owners are still figuring things out with insurance. I guess I would request no real action. We'll probably be looking at another year to 2 years before we should know within a year for sure what we're going to do with it. At this point, we have every intention to proceed with a retail, but if that changes, we would keep you guys posted.
Okay, well, yeah, was that? That wasn't in the forest fire. Was it there in the parks, or was it? Or was that?
No, this was in Fairbanks. The old
Triple
Creek Coronado.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah. Okay.
And then a few weeks to follow was the Blue Loon. So there's pretty wild. But.
Yeah, kind of scary. Okay, all right. Thank you.
Yep.
420 Grow Tech in Sutton.
Yes, sir. Greg Hoffman. Good morning.
Yeah, go ahead. Tell us where you're at.
I'm proceeding nicely. I'm to the camera wiring, and I'm looking to try to get inspection in the next 3 months. I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, but should be about that for sure.
Okay, that sounds pretty reasonable. Great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's everybody that was in pending inspection status. Now we're in delegated status, and I'll read the list again and see how many hands go up. Alaska Fireweed, Brown's Owl, Glacier Bay Farms, Alaska Kind, Fox Creek, Nobody here yet, huh? Denali Herb, Bigfoot Bud, Chong Key Farms, Galactic Herb, Daily Woda Investments, Bluffside Gardens, and Potter's Harvest. Potter's Harvest. Oh, you're which one? Okay, Bluffside. Okay, come on up, we'll do Bluffside real quick.
Thank you. So, the fire marshal application has been submitted, and as of today's the 14th. As of today, the fire marshal gave my client, a letter requesting eight items of information, and so hopefully we'll get those in, and hopefully it'll be reviewed and then be able to call for inspection.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, folks on the phone, please turn the pinball machines off, mute your phones. I'll go through the list here. Pardon me. Okay, Alaska Fire. Yes.
Sorry. We did receive an email from Alaska Fire Weave Farms that they don't anticipate being present, but they did provide a written update. I don't.
Okay, that's fine. Just go ahead and give that to whoever it needs to go to. Thank you. All right. So, Brown's Owl Cultivation in Fairbanks. You on the line?
Okay. I'm on, and I've been listening.
Brown's Owl?
How do I respond? Just pick up my phone and
Okay. Go ahead and mute the phone for a second. I didn't hear him there. This is for the board, as you'll see.
The conference is now in listen-only mode.
It's the third meeting that the applicant hasn't been present at. But you're good.
I'm sorry. It sounded kind of like that may have been him saying that his phone wasn't working.
Okay, well, let's try it again.
The conference is no longer in listen-only mode.
Okay, there's Brown's Owl Cultivation on the line. Okay, Brown's Owl, are you out there? If you are out there and your phone isn't working, send us an email. Okay, it doesn't sound like they're there. Okay, go ahead and can that.
The conference is now in listen-only mode.
2017, in December of 2018, their council requested to provide a report. I don't recall who their council was. It was you. Are you still representing them? Okay.
They had financial issues.
Right, yeah.
And I haven't heard, and I've tried to contact them and I haven't heard.
Okay. So,
For Brown.
yeah. So, what's the board's thought here? They haven't been in contact with the office for Brown's Owl that anybody's aware of?
They haven't requested an inspection or asked any questions that I'm aware of in enforcement.
Yep, okay. And they haven't, again, in February, in December, Ms. Weltzine asked to make a report. In February of 2019, there was financial issues, and then she's no longer their counsel. They were not present in May, they were not present in July, and they were not present at the September meeting, and they're not present today.
Mr. Chairman?
Sure, go ahead.
I have a question, just procedurally. So, this was approved in September of 2017. So, presumably, if everything had gone well and they had their final inspection, they had opened for business a couple months later, they would have been up for renewal in 2018. Correct? Okay. So what I'm wondering is, and then probably renewal again in 2019 and so forth. So with this having been approved in 2017 but no final inspection yet conducted, presumably there's no renewal process gone through and it's just sort of hanging out there in limbo. Is that correct?
So what happens when licenses are delegated is if it hasn't gone through, we process them as though they're going to go through shortly after approval. But if they are pending in situations like these, the licensure gets updated once the final license is issued, and so it's issued for that licensing year. So there is not a current process for renewal of these pending licenses or update of these applications in any way, which I think is part of the impetus to have them reviewed by the board.
Thanks. So, Does anybody have
Mr.
any?
Chair?
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Jones.
I think our standard procedure, is to, do this by email. But I guess I would move that we instruct staff to, send them an email and maybe a registered letter requesting that they be online or in person at the January meeting. And failing that, the board may or may not take some action on their pending license.
Yep, no, that sounds fine. That sounds fine. All right. Turning it over when I should be turning the page. Oh, was that a motion, Mr. Jones?
It was.
Okay, all right, so is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, so the motion, and seconded for staff to contact Brown Soil Cultivation, let them know that they are, expected to be, for notifying they will be on the agenda in the January meeting, and that, pending their non-appearance, action could be taken. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, very good. Thank you for reminding me that was a motion. Okay. Glacier Bay Farms, the phone back on?
The conference is no longer in listen-only mode.
Okay, good morning. We're back on the line. Glacier Bay Farms, Ms. Waldo.
Yes, I'm here.
Good morning. Hi. So what's going on?
We were moved to the active status on November 6th by the marijuana licensing, and I have the fire marshal's approval. We've got our video cameras are all installed and working. Juneau Electric is finished with their part of the project now, and finally yesterday the rest of our supplies came in, and we're getting the lights mounted and we're getting the fans mounted on the wall. So basically we have to finish the fence and the drainage and get our engineer who will approve that. I'm sure he already has been inspecting it, and then we'll be ready to call for inspection.
That there's Mitch.
What?
Okay, so you're anticipating pretty quick calling for inspection. Okay, all right. Got that? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, Alaskind LLC in Fairbanks. Are you with us? Alaskind. Okay, so they weren't present in July and they weren't present in September, so they are no-show again. We'll look for them in January and see what happens. Everybody knows these guys. Tell them to get on the phone on January. All right, Fox Creek LLC. Are you with us?
Hi, this is Jason Brandeis. I'm the attorney for Fox Creek.
Good morning, Mr. Brandeis.
Good morning.
So, in February, we were told that they anticipate being operational in 6 months. Where are they at?
A couple more months away. They had an issue with the fire marshal. They needed to get some revised paperwork from the fire marshal. We just received that a couple of days ago. The septic system that they were working on has been, they got DEC approval. It's been installed, and they're just waiting on some final review and paperwork. So at this point, they are anticipating being operational before asking for final inspection and being operational before the next meeting in January. So we are anticipating that this will not be on your agenda at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Denali Herb Company in Wasilla.
Yeah, I'm here. This is Greg Stegan, owner
Hi,
of
good
Denali
morning.
Herb.
What's going on?
We're still plugging away, got electrical coming in, that's the biggest one, and then, electrical and security.
Okay, you got any sort of a timeline there?
I'm hoping for towards the first of the year, but it might be just a little bit past January.
Okay. All right, that's fine. All right. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Bigfoot Bud Company in Kenai. Bigfoot Bud Company, are you out there? Limited cultivation in Kenai. Hello, is that Bigfoot Bud Company? All right, they're a no-show again. They were no-show last time. Okay, Chonky Farms in Fairbanks. Chonky Farms, are you with us? Okay, it says they're making changes for fire marshal compliance. Okay, going one last time. Chunky Farms. Okay, they're not there. Galactic Herb in Fairbanks. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
This is Mr. Dlaka?
Yes, this is.
Okay, so in September you told us you're making changes with the fire marshal, so what's going on?
Yeah, I'm actually still at about that stage. I've been waiting for a mechanical engineer, and I think I'm just kind of at the end of the list from the season, and I know that they've been out of town, but they're supposed to be getting my project pretty soon.
Okay, so you're waiting on mechanical engineering for the fire marshal?
Yep.
Okay, is paper the only thing holding you up, or what?
Pretty much, yeah. I've got the other documentation I need to amend my fire marshal application, and I mean, as far as I know, that should let me proceed. So.
Okay. All right. And no sense saying how fast you think the fire marshal will be. I know better than that. Okay. We'll if we don't hear anything from you, we'll look for you in January.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Yeah. Delhi Woda Investments #1 in North Pole. Somebody's walking around. You want to mute your phone, please?
What tab are you on?
Delhi Woda, are you out there?
What tab are you on?
We're on item 10 of tab. Is it 23? Tab 23.
Thank you.
Tab 22. Okay. Dally Woda Investments, going once, going twice. Okay, they weren't here in September either, so. All right. Potter's Harvest in Wasilla. Potter's Harvest with us? I hear somebody really low. Is that you? Okay, Potter's Harvest. Yes, is this Potter's Harvest?
Yes, this is J.C. Caldwell, owner and operator of Potter's Harvest.
Okay, good morning. So you're waiting on fire marshal?
Yeah, I'm waiting on fire marshal. The year during delegation kind of went like this. I submitted to the fire marshal when as far as he'd let me. I submitted electrical, mechanical, and structural. It came up in the meeting that he wanted me to have 2-hour rated firewalls. So I went to an architect, and I've been through about 3 of them over the past year here. I finally settled on one architect, and he's currently drawing up the plans to submit to Station 51.
Okay, so then you got to do construction after that?
Correct, but we're not having to
so
tear apart the walls. We're just having to put a 4-inch chasing all around the walls.
Okay, well we'll call you out in January just to get an update.
Okay.
All right, thanks very much.
Thanks.
Okay, which brings us to tab 23. This is going to be licensees delinquent, go ahead and you can shut the phone off there for a minute.
The conference is now in listen-only mode.
So at the previous board meeting, the board had seen and discussed with staff the number of NOVs that had been received for delinquent taxes, and you indicated that you wish to have a list of and speak with anyone that was delinquent in their taxes for 3 out of the last 6 months. So all of these individuals have been notified that you wish to speak with them. And I believe from previous indication you wanted to kind of know why they've been delinquent and get that information.
Okay, and in the memo, where it says yes, that means they were delinquent?
I believe so.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that does indicate that they were delinquent.
Okay, very good. So, all right, then go and get the phone off. We got somebody on the list. All right, Rainforest Farms. Go online.
The conference is no longer in listen-only mode.
Okay. Rainforest Farms, with us?
Yeah, this is James Barrett with Rainforest Farms.
Okay, so Mr. Barrett, we've got you down on the list here. Looks like you paid taxes in August. You get delinquency.
Yeah, we're coming back on the January. No matter what. No, because they even put Kyle on because he's got the fire marshal.
Okay, yeah, hold on a second, fellas. If you're not Rainforest Farms, you want to mute your phones, please. We're talking to licensees delinquent. You all should know you're supposed to be here.
I got no room in my little cabin.
Okay, the guy with no room in his little cabin, you want to mute your phone, please?
All right. I got it right
Thank
here.
you.
Yeah, it's on the line.
Okay. Rainforest Farms.
Yeah, so basically the situation is kind of a two-pronged thing. We had some power failures a few years ago, so it's been taking, almost 2 years to bounce back from that. We were late on a few taxes last summer, and we've since entered into an installment payment plan with Division of Revenue to pay it back. Recently, what we noticed just happened was our installments and our monthly taxes were all getting lumped into the installment plan. So it looked like we weren't paying our cultivation tax. And so I'm working with Revenue right now to sort that out. So I think it's actually just kind of an accounting mistake. But we're on track now to catch up. We just need to sort out why our installment and our monthly tax was grouped together, making it appear as though we haven't been paying. So we've been overpaying on our installment plan, and it's showing no monthly payments made. So I'm working with DOR right now to clear that up. And that's kind of the status. I don't see us having this problem in the future.
I didn't feel that.
So now that our power is back up and we've kind of produced again, and we're at a good spot, so kind of rectified that problem. So that's the status on our tax situation.
How long was your power out?
Oh, well, we had a power failure, so we had to upgrade our power. That put us out growing for about 7 to 8 months. And if you remember our conversation yesterday about the retail store, so we were relying on a retail store to cover the cultivation side, in which it started hurting our retail side. And as you know, we then tried to sell our store as an asset to maintain just the grow side. That fell through as well. But now that we have our cultivation back and the retail store back, we're back in business. We just have to maintain our payment plan with both the city and the state. And looks like we're on track to catching up. We feel pretty good about it. We're confident in the numbers that we're producing right now, and much more organized than it has been in the past. So I think, in this industry, and I'm sure a lot of other cultivators have this problem, is, when you lose a crop for any reason, it'll put you out for 6 to 7 months. And without extra capital in this industry, inability to get bank loans and, even find just partners who have cash that can help you out, it's just been very difficult. So we've become solvent since then. It's been a very rough couple of years, but
it started to really, dial in our processes and, kind of really get back on track. So I would say we're back on track. We're just kind of sorting a few things out.
Okay, so you're on a payment plan. You're in contact with the Department of Revenue on issues that you're seeing on your side, that they're merging your payment plan payments and your current payments. So
yes, sir.
Right? Okay.
Yep.
All right. And I'll just say, to remind everybody that the taxes we're talking about are sales taxes that are actually paid. They're collected by the cultivator from the person or organization they sell it to, and you're collecting those taxes on behalf of the state of Alaska, and it's your responsibility to remit them. So that's just a general statement there. Okay, thank you. Hey, I don't know if those guys are in the background with you. You guys are having a conversation in the background. You mute your phones. Okay, Dave Straub, Alaska Precision, are you with us?
Hi, yeah, this is Straub.
Okay, Dave, we'll see if we can hear you. All right, we're showing you 6 months arrearage here. What's going on?
We're just living the life. We've been in this 4 years. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Dave.
Okay, well, we've been in this 4 years, and it's been quite a journey. The industry's evolving. The price was very high at the beginning, and as you can see, we paid quite a bit at the beginning, and then the price almost hit what I call the bottom, but the price is coming back up and leveling back out like the market should, and we create awesome products. We just made a payment plan with this Department of Revenue, and we're confident we'll be able to fulfill that and continue on. So we're trying our best. We were at the ground zero of the fire a couple months ago, so it's been a struggle.
Sure, yeah, no, I understand that. Okay, but you are on a payment plan with Department of Revenue right now?
Yes.
Okay.
He's actually waiting until I make this month's payment to adjust and tell me what the payment is. But yeah, I'm in a payment plan with them right now.
All right, to cover everything, let's say, from May here. Okay, very good, thank you. Okay, Alaska Blooms, Mr. Chairman, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Is there a way we can verify with Department of Revenue if they've actually made payments or if they're on a payment plan?
I'll leave that to, it's hard. Department of Revenue holds that close, some of it is.
Through the chair, generally what happens if they're issued a NOV, the licensee responds back with an email or a letter from the Department of Revenue showing that they are working with them or are on a payment plan to satisfy that. And I think those generally are provided to the board within the responses. At least traditionally that's what's happened. And that's the only way we can find out if they are in compliance with Department of Revenue, because Department of Revenue has very strict rules surrounding giving us tax information from another source. And the licensees have brought that information for us to show that they've satisfied on their end that they are on a payment plan, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I can email that to you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, Alaska Blooms, again, turn
The conference is now in listen-only mode.
Okay, go ahead and introduce yourself to us.
I'm Lyndon Anson. I'm one of the Alaskan Blooms owners and here to answer some questions. And
yeah, so
I got a few concerns too that I want to.
Well, we got you down for being delinquent for 5 months out of 6. that correct? Are you
No,
on a
that's
payment
wrong.
plan?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're on a payment plan.
Okay,
We're delinquent at 3 months.
okay.
We're not actually delinquent at 3 months. You guys put us on for a delinquent of 3 months.
This is
but-
3 of the last 6.
Yeah, but October's not even due yet. It's listed for October, right? So we're not 3
October
months.
17th, yeah.
So we're not
Okay.
late, but yeah, we're listed as late.
Okay.
So we are entered into a payment program. If anybody's interested to know how this happened, I got a few insights I'm willing to share. Is, you know, not pushing blame or going either way, but our company in the cultivation side, we experienced, you know, just an unfortunate circumstance. One of the tests for our rooms went out, and the whole room fails, 13 samples. We send 13 samples like every other week quite regularly, unless we're in a downtime, and then it goes once a month. In sending this, I'm like, damn, that's really odd. Like, we've never had a whole room fail. We've had one strain fail that came out of a greenhouse, but we've never had a whole room fail. So through that and in contact, 3 other cultivators get a hold of me, like, damn, all of our tests failed on this day through this lab. And I'm like, that's funny. All my tests failed that day on that lab too. So as this started out, we sent a letter asking, you know, to retest. We'll pay for this. Let's send tests to every single lab there is. Let's see what's going on. After 4 weeks, was responded with not enough evidence, which takes $150,000 of income out of play. Now it has to be asked to be sent to SHOT. Once we ask for that, 4 weeks later, we're told, okay, half of it is approved, can go to SHOT. So we wait, been in contact with Mr. Holscher straight through this whole thing, saying, hey, what's going on? Through my contact with Mr. Holscher, he was able to go to the director or the board and get it approved to send it to SHOT. So after we send it to have it remediated, the way that it's set up on your deal is whatever you list for a manufacturing company is the only manufacturing company that it can go to. So after the approval comes, the manufacturing company that it goes to only accepts it at tax value. So the company then has made no money. The state has made taxes that are due off on it, and the extraction company remediates that product and they make profit. There's nothing there for the cultivator. So where I'm headed with this is, when did you think the ripple effect was going to happen? I mean, it's coming. You take $150,000 out of play out of any of these businesses and wonder when that ripple effect is going to happen. The last time I sat before all of you guys, Mr. Lauren told me a good businessman pays his taxes. Well, for sure, but a good businessman also knows that the state is making late fees, and they're also making whatever they put on there for fines, fees, penalties, and late fees, which we've came good for every single one that we've ever had and paid all of those. So a good businessman in my book says, what do I do right now to keep going and keep all my employees going and keep my business up and going, and decide to pay the late fees and the penalties that are due to the state, which they have received from us. So they're making more money than their taxes. But then, you know, it's like, I don't know, I think you guys are like disengaged from what's going on. I think that this whole board, and whoever the director ends up being, needs to kind of communicate with the enforcement and the tax people. You guys have rights to all this stuff, and see what's going on before you bring people up here. And then you're asking, hey, first of all, we were set as 3 months late, which we're not. Second of all, now we're airing out all the dirty laundry in front of everybody, right? For what? It's frustrating. Time is money. I get it. You guys are asking, where's your taxes? And at the same point, it's already been worked out. I've been in contact with enforcement, Mr. Davies, Mr. Holscher. We have been in contact through Kelly Mazza, who's the supervisor for the DOR. Erin, I can't get the last name. She receives the monthly taxes, and Clarabelle for the payment plan program. The payment program that we are currently on is up to date. The taxes that are in arrears have had payments paid on them, right? This is 4 months later. We're starting to climb out of where the ripple effect is. We set up precautions to try to help us, which is product that would usually go in the waste pile and be thrown away just because I don't want to deal with paying the state $240 worth of taxes on it. We've now been scraping all that together and sending it to manufacturers and trying to get product made out of it and doing a gamble with it. But again, you send that product out, right? Taxes are due the next month, and sometimes you don't get that product back in that time frame to get the flip going, you know. Here it is, we've already went past the low part, we're riding up on the top part, we're eliminating non-reoccurring debt, not a reoccurring any more debt to go with it, and starting to get all these payments that are reoccurring, which are taxes paid up and put up to date, which all of our borough taxes have been, to date, 100% paid in full, okay? Here's another part that you don't understand. When you say a good businessman pays his taxes, are you guys aware that in Fairbanks, some of the property values went up 300 to 400% just to become a marijuana business? My taxes on our building used to be $16,000. They are $36,000 a year, and your license will not be renewed through the borough unless those taxes are paid in full. So in an unfortunate circumstance like this that happens, and you take that much money out of play, this is the frustrating part of it. You guys don't even look at it. That's my product. I grew that. I know what that product looks like. If I'm willing to pay thousands of dollars for more testing, you should be at least willing to let me send it to labs that are licensed in this state and have it tested. I should not be shut down because of evidence. Quite frankly, it's bullshit. You're trying to do the same thing they do at the docks. Bringing in a load of bananas, let it set there until it rots before I'll give you approval on it. Same thing.
What test did your product fail? And you said a number of other ones.
I'm not going to release the other people that came to.
No. But which test was it?
Which test was it?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
I mean, you get tested for.
We
THC,
test for everything. No, the microbial
okay.
failed for aspergillus.
Okay.
And every single cultivation that tested in that lab that day failed for aspergillus.
Right.
Every test.
Okay.
Right? How's that not enough evidence to ask CAN test or to ask Fat Labs to retest?
Yeah.
Which we're going to do the next part. You guys pulled Fat Labs license, right? Here's some things that you guys weren't aware before you just yanked them out of play. Some of those tests that we had already sent in 5 days, and not me, but several cultivators had sent in were already done and in approval. You shut them down before they could release that. 6 days later, very frantic phone call from me to that gentleman said, hey, do you realize that I've already dealt with a room? Now I'm dealing with you guys telling me, oh, send out new tests, go to a new lab. No, we already paid $1,800 to have it tested. It's already been tested. They said it was approved. Their license was shut down before they could release the test results. 15 to 20 minutes after talking to Mr. Holscher, and he goes, they come back, they release our test an hour later. All of a sudden, revenue starts to flow again, right? So some of the decisions that are made up here, you guys tell us to be good and to be vigilant. We can't second guess what you guys are going to do. You guys have to think about us, too. You know, this is a two-way system. We jumped through the hoops that you ask, thinking about what's going on, doing an email, say, hey, what's up with this? Before you just rule no, or before you say, hey, I'm going to shut this business down because there is an issue, and I totally understand that, and I totally figure that out. But these people have already paid for their tests, and their tests are completed. All right, release those. Now we're going to stop your license from taking in more product and doing more tests. You know, little thoughts like that. Keep the money flowing, stop people from coming up here and saying, hey, you know, I'm late on taxes because, you know, we've sat down and did our numbers and sharpened our pencil, and the only thing we can't do is second guess your actions. You know, you guys need to think about that for us, you know. Am I ashamed that I have back taxes? Hell no. It means I'm out there, I'm in the trenches, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. Look it up. My tax payments have been made on time and my obligations were filled. You know, this is where I kind of sat with it. I'm glad to answer any questions that you guys have. Most of the, I did have one last one. Let me go to the, you know, one other thing I would ask is, like, when you set these meetings up and you put people on tabs, you know, why not try to break these down? I spent all day here to see if I was going to be called, which kind of took me out of play on making money to create more revenue, to pay more of these taxes quicker, you know, that it would be nice to know, hey, we're going to cover taxes on the second day, because that gives you one more day, you know, to keep attending the business and keep things going. I know everybody here is super busy. I do this 24/7, 7 days a week. We are on more people. Some of the frustration that goes on between these businesses and this board is a lack of communication, straight up. I have asked every single person here to come to our facility. Tour our facility, we'll give you the insides out, we'll show you our books, we'll show you everything. Not one person showed up. Not one person. Same thing with the borough, but then everybody's always saying, so what's the problem? Where's my money? You know, that's what we get. Where's my money? Where's my taxes? Where's your support? Where did you show up? Where did you take a look at what's going on? Did you realize these is living crops in a normal business? We would have banking, had it, revolving credit for $1 million in our paving company, so when an unfortunate event happened, we dropped back onto that credit, we made sure our taxes were paid, we paid that credit by the end of the year, and it revolved back into another one. There is nothing like that in this industry. They say that we're supposed to be a normal industry and we're going to be treated regular. Where's quarterly taxes? Why are we hounded every single month over them? You know, these are questions that are coming from us. I mean, is there any answers? Can you guys fill in any of these blanks? Can we work on it? Or is it, this is the way it is, and let's go forward? You know, we're supposed to grow the industry and make it better. This industry has ran for, 3 years, just over 3 years, right? There's been a couple little things that have been done. Seriously, getting out there and talking to cultivators, the cultivators that are putting money out and talking about the tax structure and where the taxes are at. You guys need to do that. You need to figure it out. This is going to progressively get worse. And I know people say, well, if you got a good business model, it does it. Horseshit. There is things out there that happen. Look at it. The ones that are saying that now, I'd love to hear their comments in a year and a half from now. You know, our issue is we are big. You know, we started a lot in the beginning. We got into a couple, you know, unfortunate circumstances, but we have cleaned up stuff. You know, non-recurring debt, we went through $3.26 million, non-recurring debt that's not coming back to us. That stuff's paid off. We've kept our taxes paid up, you know. Things happen. You guys have to be able to understand this, take a look at what's going on. Not everybody is trying to hide something or to get away with something. I call with normal questions. You guys want more money for the industry? I called the other day and I talked to Officer Rooks, and I'm like, hey, I got a question. So, in week 5 or week 6 or week 7 of bloom, when your fan leaves start to get crystally, we pull those off. In the beginning, you guys asked, oh, we want the weight from every single plant, and then we'll register that as waste, and then we'll destroy it, and you hang on to it on site for 3 days. My question was, how come I can't just dry that, put it in a bag, set it on a shelf, and when the harvest comes down, put all that back in to go as distillate run, right? Well, I don't know. You have to write us a letter, which he was super helpful, and we would talk back and forth, and this is what I'm saying. I wish that there was a number where you guys could sit down and take a phone call once a week and say, hey, this is an issue. How do you guys want to proceed? How do you want to go forward? You know, we get tons of help from the DOR, tons of help from the taxation places, tons of help from your enforcement, and zero help from the board. Lots of questions, lots of parading, lots of just, you know, horseshit. I'm not being, you know, I'm being honest. I've been in this for 3 years. I got 3 ulcers. Any one of you can have one of them. Where the worries are real, my company takes about $160,000 to $180,000 in operating costs every month. That's not your taxes. That's not your oops. That's not your borough taxes. That is electric bill. That is payroll. That is insurances. That is building costs. That is what the taxes cost for land, for having the land, your land taxes in. So next time that you pull somebody's crop and you say not enough evidence, think about how much money you're pulling out of their play. A whole month's worth of bills. What's going on? You know, ask them. That's what I would ask. If you guys have any questions, I'm willing to answer them all.
Well, thank you. I found that very instructive. I mean, I learned quite a bit listening to you.
Sorry, Mr. Springer.
Yes.
After review of the memo, when you spoke about the October taxes not coming up yet, I would like to clarify, it does appear that these are a list of the individuals or the businesses that were listed in the month that the memo was sent to AMCO. So the October 17th memo was sent to AMCO, but it references previous taxes. So it was the months in which we were notified of previous taxes due. So thank you for that clarification.
For sure.
Through the chair, the dates are the dates of the NOVs that were issued that show that they were previous delinquencies for the prior 30 days. That's what the date reference.
Okay. Well, it just says October on what we got, and like I said, October taxes aren't due.
They're not, and
No.
if you were delinquent for October, then I believe that you should be getting another email here pretty soon, so.
Yeah, we just been cleaning it up, you know.
So, through the chair, I completely understand, and I empathize where you're coming from when you say you have something drastic such as an infestation or an aspergillus failure, and that causes a ripple effect where you lose revenue and it causes you to be behind. I think all of us, in a personal matter, have suffered from something where an unexpected bill comes up and pushes you behind, further behind and behind. I think the efforts that you guys take, as long as you continually pay for these and you don't abandon your taxes that are owed to the state of Alaska, I think that's important to understand. As for the cultivation thing that you referenced with Investigator Rux, all I can say is the regulations state that harvests have to happen at the same time, and when you do these, I guess downstates they would call them manicure harvests or manicure trimming. That's not specified in our regulations.
A manicure harvest is when you're harvesting any kind of a bud off the top of it, which would be your first cut around on the top. You know, when back in the day I used to grow outdoors, you always take the tops first, come back 2 weeks later, pull the bottoms. That would be a manicure harvest. What we're talking about is a de-leafing. Here's the truth, is you guys are looking for more money. There's tons of money in the trash that you guys are throwing away. There's no button to transfer waste, right? And why would I pay $240 taxes on something that might generate $500 total, and you still got to pay to have it processed? But here's where it comes. 365 pounds of waste a week. I would take $250 on that. It generates some income. But there's, you know, everybody says this taxing. Looking at it and fixing it is the first step, you know, and saying, okay, hey, why don't we put a transfer for waste in there? We'll send that and we'll tax it when it goes to sale at a percentage like every other state is doing. You know, I mean, I get we're pioneers, but come on, quit building wheels for wagons that already exist. You know?
Yeah. Thanks for your thoughts. It was heartfelt, and I don't think that you're alone in your frustrations or your concerns. A couple of questions for you. You had some product that went and got tested, it failed, and then you needed to get it retested.
Yes, sir.
What was the delay there?
It was response from Erica McConnell. I mean, I'm not pointing the finger, and I really wish that she was here so this conversation could go back and forth. So whether it's Erica McConnell or the board, we were waiting for an answer from them. The letter that I received was from Erica McConnell that said not enough evidence, denied.
How long a time period lapsed between your request and the notice that it was denied?
Okay, so get to the bottom of it here.
I'm going to shoot from the hip here really quickly. I believe this is one of the facilities that was affected by the testing that started the work with Mr. Kirby.
The work was what?
The work with DEC during the review of testing protocols.
Nope, never been asked. Applied for several of them. I do have the answer that you're looking for here. Just a second. Here we go. So, all total, we were 6.5 weeks from the harvest till we finally got an answer on half of it. 2.5 weeks more after making, 2.5 weeks more went by, so it was 8.5 weeks before the whole thing was cleared.
I think you're jumping to my next question, but let me back up. So between asking between getting a failed test
Mm-hmm.
and saying, hey, I'd like to get this retested somewhere else.
Yes.
How much time lapsed before you got a response to that request?
The response to that one was 2.5 weeks.
Okay. Okay, thanks. And then you decide, okay, we wanted to send this to get it blasted and processed somewhere,
Yes.
right? Okay. How much time lapsed between that?
There was
request?
4 weeks until we got clarification from the director to send half of it, because in one of the batches, there was a 52-pound batch that one package passed. So I take that back. So every test did not fail. One package passed. Everything else failed. And when I said, okay, well, what do we do with this other half of this package? Because there was 6 tests sent out, 5 fail, 1 passes, right? These ones were not cleared to send to be remitted.
Okay.
So after 2.5 weeks of waiting, I made a phone call to Mr. Holster, and within 2 days, he had an answer and had it cleared for me to test.
Okay,
Or for me to go.
Okay, thanks. So you got approval to send part of your product, to sell part of your product to some processor. But you had to identify, in making that request, you had to identify the one processor you were going to send it to?
They asked, okay, which processor, which one do you? And the marketing manager that was sending the emails for me, she listed just one. She listed just one company. She said, we would like to send it to, this company or another one. But that one company's name got listed on there because there's only a spot for one name, right?
Okay, thank you. So I just want to make sure I understood that correctly. So perhaps this is a question for staff. In that scenario, if somebody has failed product or just trim that they want to sell to a processor, are they constrained in who they can do business with?
Through the chair, I believe that it was at what we understand is certain processes only can eliminate aspergillus, and only the processors who have the capability were approved to receive that failed product.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. Thank you. That's important. But there are multiple processors that use CO2 extraction, for example.
I believe that is, yes.
There's multiple out there. How many are actually cleared to pass remitted? I don't know the exact process.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
The reason I brought it up is because after it was cleared and we sent it to the processor, the processor's like, oh, it's all remitted. All I'm paying is taxes. Where at the point where if you had options at that point, the options are to okay, no worries, I'll call a different processor.
Right.
B, okay, call in the investigator, watch me destroy it. Because we had that conversation, if it's over 3 pounds, he wants them on site to watch it be destroyed.
So this processor knew that you had nobody else to sell it to.
Whether that processor knew or not, I have no clue, but it was just another gate that is put up when you're searching avenues of relief.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? It's some of this industry has got so many loopholes in it, guys. I don't even understand why it's not Wild Wild West and shit's going down. The other part of it is so over restricted about the stupid things that it's like, we've had this conversation, Mr. Holster and I have, it's like, some of the packaging restraints are ridiculous. I mean, all we're doing is polluting. Damn, that's not what this was for. But some of the things, it just needs to be reworded. And I think having conversations with people that are actively in this industry and different parts of it, instead of just taking one person's word and they're in this part of the industry, if you're going to do extracting, talk to the extractors. If you're going to do something that affects the growers, talk to the growers. If you're going to do it for retail, talk to the retailers. Because in my humble opinion, the retailers don't give a shit about the cultivators. Nobody does. They care about their own. And remember this, in the end, no cultivators, no industry. It ain't legalized to buy across the state lines. You don't cultivate it, where's it coming from?
I have some other thoughts, but I'm just going to stop now. I think some of the other board members might have some questions.
Anybody else got any questions? Here, go ahead, Mr. Miller.
I guess I don't have any questions, but it's kind of the things that I've been trying to talk about in the last 3 or 4 meetings is prioritizing things, right? And things like this should be prioritized to the top of the list because it is costing people financially. Some people are losing their businesses, they're firing people. I gotta be honest with you, if someone has a failed test, why do they not have the option to have it retested? Why are we looking for evidence? Well, it's a $200 check is what it is, right? Maybe something happened on the transport, maybe something happened in the lab, maybe anything could happen, right? If a cultivator or the business owner believes enough in their product to spend another $250 to get it tested, why are we saying no? And I'm not looking for answers, just wanting people to think about it, right? But when you have a couple $100,000 on the line, I mean, that really should be a 1 or 2 day response, not weeks, sometimes not months. And, you know, trust me, you're not the first cultivator I've heard from.
So,
I've been lucky so far, but I get it. And, I think your explanation was much better than mine, and, I appreciate it.
thank you very much. One of the questions you had asked is how long it took, 6.5, 7.5 weeks to complete that process. Just so everybody knows, from the day we chop down until our shelves are empty is 2 weeks. Bud does not sit around on our shelf. If anything sits around, it's a distillate product that is going to distill it. So our income pulls over like that. I know that everybody has a busy life, but some of these decisions are people's lives that you're deciding. When our crop comes down 2 weeks later, everything's out the building. So to set on a product for, 6.5, 7.5 weeks. And it just happened to be that crop fails and it was a 3 week to the next harvest. And when your company already, exceeds $160,000 a month in operating costs, you're already on a tightrope. Take that tightrope away. What happened, in a full explanation, was vendors were sought out. And through those vendors, product was brought in to keep the business going And unfortunately, this is just me. Those vendors and those people that own these family-owned businesses are more important to me than DOR. I would rather pay DOR's late fees. I would rather pay their extra tack on that they put on there so I can give the money to the vendors first and make sure that their debt is squared. My grandfather always told me, your word's your bond. And you can ask anybody in this industry that I've done business with, I might owe you money, but I'm good for it. I'll pay it in the end. And depending on where it is, I'll pay you before I'll pay anything. I'll take that on my chin, and I'll stand by it, and I'll continue to do it. And hopefully we can fix this. And in a year and a half from now, we won't have to be sitting here having these conversations.
Mr. Chairman? I just want to let everybody know that request for failed material, those should be a pretty straightforward process, and I've talked to my staff, and I told them that when we receive those should receive priority. I know there's a few in the queue that I will have taken care of as soon as possible. As for the request for retest, there is another side to that, which I do understand that somebody should have the option for retest. It's in our regulations, but it puts the first test in question, and if you have it at the same facility or a different facility, it brings up so many questions. So there has to be a process, I guess, is what I'm getting at, because which test actually was accurate if it comes back and there was something negative present on the second one when it was present on the first. So I'm just making a statement as to there is a need to review this, and this is kind of where a lot of the, I guess, where it hits a narrow spot and you can't, the funnel effect where everything slows down.
Well, in my other experiences, I've ordered a lot of heavy equipment, OEM parts, right? Engines, turbos, tons of stuff. I've owned boxed cases of brand new engines that were faulty from the factory. The factory takes that price. They pay for that, not you. So, in my humble opinion, you got to test. I believe where my test is. Let me test with every lab. They all come back clean, and that one lab is the only one that comes back dirty. You better start looking at their stuff. When it's all done, you better make them pay for the test. It was their fault in the first place. This is how it is in normal business. I've done a lot of business with a lot of different vendors. This is how it goes. Let's just take it to normal business instead of, regulating. I've had corn that I went to sale when I was a farmer before this, I've had failed milk tests. I've requested another test. Let's have it. And had it come back out where there was something that happened in the lab, And they're like, damn, okay, and it's just challenging that and trying to have it done. Like, I agree. If I'm willing to pay for it, why would you tell me, no, I can't spend my money on it? Because I would damn sure be breaking the law if I just took that sample and went and had it tested and showed up and said, hey, man, look, the other 3 labs all tested it clear. This lab retested it, and it's clear today. Isn't that funny? I know my product, I know that the way we do things is right. When you pull 52 pounds and you test it, and every one of them is within 0.1, 0.2, 1.1, and 1.2 of each other, your testing is coming out in a fair, in an even mark. It's not like you're picking up something and testing specifically, the random tests that are sent in there. Why would we be denied to prove that our product is good? And if it comes back bad, shut your mouth and send it and have it remitted. And it cost us something. It didn't cost you anything.
Through the chair, just a quick response is the one thing that we need to consider and keep in mind. I know it's always at the forefront of my mind is public safety.
Yes, sir.
When you have something come back that is dangerous to public health, such as E. coli or aspergillus, especially with people that may have breathing problems or asthma, those are huge concerns that we need to consider, and that's why we test for those things. So it's a little more complicated than a machine part being sent back. This can affect somebody's health to the point of being very ill or sick, or even to the point of dying if it's somebody with a weak immune system. So I think we really need to consider that. And I'll reiterate, I agree with you. I agree with what Nick said, but there needs to be a process or something in place for that. And that will push things forward a lot quicker for the industry if there is a process for that.
I'm very sorry to interrupt, but I just want to make sure that we are aware that tab 4, I believe, discusses retesting. So there's a regulations project kind of related to the discussion. I just wanted to make sure the board remembered that.
So here's an idea. State of Alaska has a lab. Why not let it go to that lab? Why not let it be tested in the state of Alaska's lab? I get, it's not licensed. Enforcement doesn't even carry a handler's card. It's the state of Alaska. Why can't it go to their lab and be tested? You know what I'm saying? There's a question right there. Why isn't the state of Alaska undertaking some of this money by doing some of these retests? The state of Alaska does have a lab that they run, It's just, this is an option.
Through the chair, I've heard the comment about not having handler cards. We're the ones who approved the handler course.
It's just a parody, right?
Well, it is, but it's a bad parody.
Well, I mean,
it's like saying.
But here's my rebuttal on it. This is where I'm gonna stand with it. Yesterday, you said that you guys had hired an enforcement officer that's coming from out of state, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here's my bet, and I'm just assuming, and it could make an ass of me, but I would assume that none of your enforcement officers have grown, bought, sold, or consumed cannabis at any time for a long period in their life. So without that handler's card, okay, how are they taught to handle it and do everything? Because this is where it comes is like, I took the handler's card. I've handled this for 30 years, right?
I'm going to stop you. You haven't been to a law enforcement academy where we are taught evidence, handling of drug evidence. So we can go back and forth about this all day long. But the reason why we're hired, the reason why we don't have this is we already have the training that is listed in the handler card. So I appreciate that. So
okay, thanks, James. All right. Okay, so we've. Okay, go ahead.
Wait, real quickly, you brought up some really good points. I don't think you're alone in your frustration. A couple things stand out for me. First of all, to address a comment you made earlier, the board doesn't get involved with the day-to-day operations. The staff do. and you know, another consideration there is that they have limited resources. So there's at times they can be limited in what they do. However, it doesn't free the board of responsibility. I see this. I think we're at kind of a turning point in this industry. I think that the board is somewhat culpable in some of these dysfunctions in the industry because collectively the board has not really articulated a clear set of priorities from day one. Honestly, I looked it up on our website. There's no mission statement there. There is actually, and it's completely fluff. You gain nothing from it. And it's apparent to me that there is no such guiding principle that everybody agrees to. So that's one of my frustrations, but I see that as an opportunity. So I think, you know, going forward, I would really like to see this board articulate a very mission statement. Clearly, public safety has to be at the top of that list. Nobody would argue
100%.
that. After that, we've got some important priorities to identify, and I will commit to you that that's certainly going to be on my radar without exception. And I would just ask the other board members to consider that for future discussions. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, I used to be I still am again, on the Public Safety and Transportation Commission in Bethel, and we regulate the taxi cab industry. And in our ordinance, there's a requirement for an annual review of the status of the taxi cab industry. And sometimes it lasts 5 minutes because nobody's there, and sometimes it could last an hour or two. So I was thinking about that yesterday, and really this board should hold a one-day meeting, probably in Fairbanks in the summertime because the weather's so nice, and because it's hard for people to get to Juneau and other places, but to have a discussion about the status of the industry. And we would probably invite people from the Department of Revenue and other places to hear exactly what we heard from you today. I've learned more about the dynamic and the business environment of cultivation than I've been able to glean from since 2015 right here. So we aren't picking on people by asking them to address their tax NOV, and I'm actually glad that you came loaded for bear to light into us like you did, because it's really very helpful. You've raised a number of important points, and the issue of priority setting, I think, is something that actually Bob Klein and I talked about that last night. When the new director gets elected, we will probably have a joint board meeting with the new director to lay out expectations, priorities, for both industries. So, thank you for everything you said, and sometimes we need to get chewed out. And
I didn't mean any of it with any malice.
I didn't take it that way at all.
I didn't
that way at all.
Wasn't trying to pick a thing and I get it was a bad parody, and it's just sometimes those things are where it goes, and I hope that we have a long-standing relationship, working together, and and being able to converse back and forth. You don't always have to agree, but you always can work it out, right?
Yep.
Like since slamming a door and walking away.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so it's 12:15. Is there anybody in here who is on the list who would like to say something? If you don't, we're not going to, I think we'll just move on from tab 23. We have the list. If you're on there, make sure you're squared up with DOR. We'll get told one way or another that you are. I think we understand the better part of what's going on. They're all cultivators on here. So with that, if the board does...
Actually came today to talk about my...
Okay, if you would like to, if you'd like to, then we'll do it after lunch, okay? Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so we'll break until 1:15.
The chairperson has disconnected. The conference will now end.